Imagine a world where power and money can get you absolutely anything. But stick with me because we're about to watch a nobody show up and wreck everyone, men and women alike. Especially those who hit women. Let's dive in. This is Valhalla Academy, one of the top 3 hunter institutes on the entire planet. Every year, countless hunters try to get in, but with a 1 in 500 success rate, few make it. And even among those, only 150 students actually graduate. Yeah, you can see the difficulty is pretty much insane. And on the very first day of class, it's already a massive free-for-all training session. We're talking people with nothing but their bare hands going up against students with actual swords. Watching over them is the senior combat instructor, Lee Sang-kyol. After a bit, a man named Yu Min-jun shows up to watch his family's candidate, the one who has everyone's attention. Her name is Yu So-hyun, from the Yuzin family, one of Korea's 5 most prestigious families. Anyone who crosses her path gets utterly defeated, thanks to her insane talent with mana and a sword. She's a promising prodigy, but she doesn't get much more than a glance from the instructor. That is, until it's mentioned that her family has communicated with a Constellation Guardian. The guardian of the Yuzin family, to be exact, now that gets the instructor's full attention. In this world, there are 5 chosen ones, these godlike beings known as Constellation Guardians. It's common for hunters to receive their blessings and protection, or even make direct contracts for power. And each of these 5 guardians possesses a totally different kind of power. The Yuzin family has the god of the sword. The Jang San family has the god of spirits. The Jin Choi family, the god of martial arts. The Oyen family, the god of fists, and the Jian family, the god of the bow. So Yu So-hyun, having contacted a guardian, is considered a top-tier genius with incredible potential. Passing the academy test should be a piece of cake for her. This is so huge that the whole world is watching her through cameras. This 17-year-old super talent's first fight is against a guy named Kim Jua, also 17. And pay attention here, because the instructors are floored by how calm this kid is, knowing exactly who he's about to face. Confident in an easy victory, the fight begins. Our girl draws her sword, but there's no sign of the boy. So she decides to attack. Her swordsmanship is flawless, and so is her control of mana. The attack is absolutely precise. And then, believe it or not, he just punches her straight in the chest and wins the fight. Our protagonist actually looks a little disappointed by it all, and this is where we learn the real truth. 300 years ago. 3 centuries in the past, something epic happened at the Tower of Destruction. 2 men were locked in a valiant final battle. The master of the tower, Brace, the king of destruction, remarked that it had been a great battle, leaving the martial god, Kim Hyanino, heavily weakened. Brace, with his strange blue glasses and wild white hair, looks on. Kim Hyanino agrees that the fight was truly excellent. Our main character lets out a soft chuckle. But Kim Hyanino snaps to attention when a system panel appears right in front of him. It announces that the Tower of Destruction and its ruler, Brace, have been defeated. The world's destruction has been stopped. Suddenly, the enormous structure begins to crack and shake. Kim Hyanino realizes the entire building is collapsing around him. The whole tower is coming down right after he finally defeated his enemy. He groans in pain, realizing this was supposed to be his chance to finally live in peace. Since childhood, he'd scraped by as a hunter just to survive. All the money, all the fame, and the quiet life he dreamed of were crumbling right before his eyes. He knew it was over. He thought about bringing his disciples, but quickly realized that was a terrible idea. That guy was the strongest foe he'd ever faced, and bringing them along would have been a death sentence. With a hand pressed to his fatal wound, he says his final goodbye to the world. His body begins to fade away, until suddenly the boy's eyes snap open. Our hero, Kim Hyun-woo, just reincarnated into the body of a young man named Kim Hyuk. All right, stick with me here. He's woken up 300 years after the tower's collapse. The timing couldn't be better. Sure, his new body is weak, but all his knowledge. It's still there. He figured he could just adapt to this new body, and finally live in peace. But then that dreaded translucent window appears right in front of him. And you know what that means. The Tower of Destruction is coming back in just 5 years. All that time just to prepare. He was furious. He'd already defeated that monster once. He kicks himself for not burning Brace's body, but there's no time for regret. In this new era, the conditions for clearing the tower should be way easier. And this time, he's dead set on not just surviving, but actually enjoying his life. Then something new pops up on the panel, confusing him all over again. It's a quest to find his lost weapons and memories in the Valhalla Constellation room. A specific location, the 3rd underground floor. He now knew exactly what he had to do. In 4 days, Valhalla would decide its top 10 rankings. It was on. All summoned individuals were ordered to head to the stadium immediately. Hyuk gets up, a fire of excitement in his eyes. He's ready to go. Inside the arena, every participant takes their position as the spectators roar with anticipation. The senior instructor notes that there are way more people this time around. He watches everything unfold from his high perch. Down below, the newcomer Hyuk is ready. The match begins in 30 seconds. His opponent is already standing right across from him. It's the eldest son of the Osun family, the 17-year-old Osihu. This kid isn't smart, he's not a strategist, and he sucks at martial arts. But he has one talent that trumps everything else, his ridiculously strong physique. He can do things without mana that others can't, and even a little training makes him way stronger. He was basically born with a top-tier body that required zero effort to build. For that reason alone, everyone called him a genius. He glares at his opponent. Now pay attention, because this is our reincarnated master versus the natural-born prodigy. The two stand facing each other, and then Hyuk just flips him the middle finger. Asuk's face contorts with rage. He goes absolutely ballistic and charges forward. He screams, "You trash," as Hyuk calmly thinks this through. With this new body, a straight-up fight is a bad idea, especially since his opponent's a mystery. Raw strength is definitely not on his side right now, but that doesn't mean anything. Even with superior physical power, victory isn't guaranteed. Asuk throws a massive punch. Our hero easily dodges. See, he has martial arts to boost his weak physique. And something far more important, experience. He sweeps the blonde bully's legs out from under him. Asuk comes crashing down to the floor, completely stunned and confused by what just happened. Hyuk gives him a little wink, a hint of what's to come. He reveals his true ability, to perfectly observe his opponent's weaknesses. He lands a single, precise blow to his enemy's body. Asuk's eyes roll back as blood spills from his mouth. He falls unconscious, completely defeated. Just like that, Hyuk wins the battle. And you and I just witnessed a masterclass. If skill and observation aren't in sync, you get this result. Been impossible. This body was way weaker than his last, and yet he shouldn't have any problems hunting monsters like he used to. He crushes his opponent and heads for the exit, leaving everyone who watched the fight completely baffled. They all wondered how Asuk was taken out by such a ridiculously simple attack. But a man in the back was thinking hard. He was the head of the Osun family, the king of fists, Achul Shin, and you and I are about to see this fight through his expert eyes. He was furious at the idea of anyone ignorant enough to call that attack simple. Sure, his son had only trained his body, completely ignoring martial arts, but he should have dodged that hit easily. This time, however, it was something he just couldn't evade. Asuk let his temper get the best of him and just charged head-on at Hyuk. He even used his magic, trying to score a quick win, but Hyuk just tilted his head to dodge. Since Asuk was absolutely certain the strike would land, he threw his whole body forward, which sent him flying. Shocked by the missed punch, his guard was wide open, and his opponent was already there to counter. This meant Hyuk moved faster than Asuk at his absolute maximum speed, proving he already had a plan for the whole battle. That alone was monstrous talent. Achul Shin, after putting all the pieces together, stood silent and deep in thought. Unfortunately for him, other people also recognized the rookie's value. Not everyone watching was an amateur. Achul Shin thought of the name Kimju Hyuk and decided the boy would join his family, no matter what it took. The stadium lights flare to life. The fans of Choi Arnuna are here, cheering like crazy. Our guy was pretty amused by these absolute lunatics who had already done their military service. Yet were screaming for a 17-year-old girl, calling her Nuna or Big Sister. This was it, the final ranked match. Kim Joo Hayak was now facing Choi Aron, the second daughter of the Cho Jin family. The match starts and she instantly whips her sword from its sheath. Preparing to land the first blow, Kim Joo Hayak just watches her with a calm, almost serene look. For a second they stand perfectly still, not a word, not a move. He quickly assumes she's waiting for his first attack. And the fact that she's trying to read him already makes her better than his last opponents. He chuckles to himself, wondering what he should do now. Then he starts walking toward her while she's on guard. He watches her with a frightening expression, his hands stuffed in his pockets. She stares right back, fearless. Not backing down one bit, she grips her sword with all her might and determination as it crackles with flashes of lightning. Everyone was blown away by this girl. She had mastered the Chon family's signature elemental exchange ability at just 17. She charges at him with every bit of courage and power she has. The boy takes a single, small step forward, giving her the perfect opening. She unleashes a massive blow with her sword, sending out a wave of blue lightning with immense power. But she's left speechless because her enemy had completely vanished from in front of her. Then he remarks that if she gives away her target with her eyes, it becomes way too easy to dodge. He was just standing right beside her, perfectly calm. She was utterly confused, and then she was struck directly. Her eyes widened, showing a mix of pure shock and disbelief. She never stood a chance, did she? A flash of pain, but she's relieved she managed to block the blow. Kim Joo Hyuk just stares her down without a single word. Choi Ain quickly grabs her impressive sword, leaping backward to create some distance. Kim Jae-hyuk is actually impressed because the girl somehow blocked his full-force attack with her blade. Which is why he hadn't felt the impact on a human body, but on cold, hard steel. She realized it was impossibly heavy. And then a single fist touches her sword. Choi Ain stares at her opponent, who practically dares her to dodge his next move. Then he unleashes a devastating blow, sending the girl flying with a desperate cry. She crashes to the ground, completely wiped out. The boy, however, thinks there was something a little strange about that last attack. It felt like his own posture was just slightly off. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. A win is a win, plain and simple. The panel flashes the top 10 admissions to Valhalla, and Kim Joo Hyuk is ranked number 1. He walks by, casually adjusting his shoulder. Suddenly, a storm of voices makes him jump, totally confused. A massive crowd had formed, all of them begging for his attention, trying to get him to join their group. Fed up, he yells at everyone to just shut up, wrapping up the chapter right there. You know, the news is already on it. The headline screams that Kim Joo Hyuk is on the verge of madness, calling him a crazy psychopath. 92 comments are tearing him apart, saying he's got to be a bad person based on his terrible actions. For a rookie, the kid is seen as way too arrogant and completely over the top. The debate rages on about his potential versus his toxic behavior. Meanwhile, inside the grand towers of Valhalla, the freshmen are getting their warm welcome. Kim Joo Hyuk thinks all this introductory info about Valhalla's history is painfully boring. Then he spots a kid staring from behind him. The boy immediately looks away, all nervous and shy. Kim Joo Hyuk figures he must have attracted a ton of attention yesterday, but honestly, he's got bigger fish to fry. There's still that one unresolved issue. That whole claim about weapons and memories that the system panel ordered up a while ago. On his way over, Kim Joo Hyuk figures he just needs to get in and get out. Sounds like an easy enough job, and yet he notices something up ahead. The opening ceremony must have just finished. The virtual combat simulation room is right there, the former chief instructor of Valhalla from the Trojan Guild. Kim Leon is wondering why the classes were distributed like this. Up ahead is Yo Yan from the Yuzun family. And beside her stands Aaron from the Trojan clan. In the middle, there's OC Hyuk from the Asen group. They were told the classes would be assigned randomly. But 3 of the 5 geniuses from the great families are all in the same room. And there was something else that caught his eye. The guy glances over at Kim Hyuk and realizes he's also in this class, basically dooming the entire year. He tries to calm himself down to assert his control over the situation immediately. He introduces himself, saying it was a pleasure to meet these young talents and that he would be their instructor. First, he presses a single button on the podium he was standing at. All the girls absolutely panic at what happens next. Suddenly, they all find themselves standing in a massive, open field. Everyone starts questioning where they are, since they were just in a classroom a second ago. Kim Leon grips the hilt of his sword, thinking he'll show them a little bit of bloodlust right now. And then watch this, several hideous and terrifying demonic beings appear. All right, stick with me, because a horde of monsters just crashed the party. Screams and chaos erupt as everyone panics at the sight. Our guy clocks them, orcs, goblins, at least 100 of them. Suddenly, one of the ugly green things starts charging right for him. One swipes with a sharp claw, another tries a leaping attack. But they both slam into a protective barrier. Kim Legon smirks. Everything is going exactly according to plan. The barrier is holding strong. He calls Kim Jayak over to the podium. The instructor gets straight to it. He asks if he can handle all these monsters alone, with no help whatsoever. This is the army surrounding them. The boy takes a moment to think it over. Kim Legon figures the kid's ego is finally in check. After all, most students have only ever seen monsters in books. He tells Kim Hyuk to just say no so they can get on with the lesson. But the boy just cracks a tiny smirk, which catches the instructor off guard. The instructor gets pissed. Why is he laughing? He's about to find out. Hyuk announces he can, in fact, handle the monsters all by himself. Now pay attention, because this is where the instructor calls his bluff. But Hyuk questions him, saying you can't ask for that on day 1. Not without some kind of reward for clearing the mission. Now he's speaking the instructor's language. The man asks what the bet is. He replies that if he clears all the monsters, the instructor must grant him a wish. Anything at all, as long as it's within his power to do so. The instructor pauses, hand on his chin, then says it's no big deal. He accepts the deal, trying to sound intimidating. The boy isn't fazed and just asks for a sword. After all, you can't fight this. Barehanded, so the instructor unstraps his own sword from his side. He hands it over for the kid to use in this impossible challenge. Kim Hyuk looks at the blade with pure, unadulterated excitement. He slings it onto his back, sizing up the massive army before him. The instructor just watches, a grim look plastered on his face. Hyuk grips the weapon tight and dives headfirst into the fray. He fights with a savage intensity, ending the chapter in a storm of fury. Every single opponent is getting brutally eliminated one by one. One monster tries a coward strike from behind, but the boy is too fast. He whips the weapon around, blocking the attack without a single moment of doubt. Not bad, he thinks, and you and I both know why. It's been 300 years. That's how long it's been since he last held a blade in battle. Back then, all kinds of weapons were used to cull the monster population. But even after all this time, the sword still feels like an old friend. He's watching for 2 things, noticing something feels off. Another monster tries the same cowardly attack from behind. Kim Hyuk dodges it easily. Everything is just as he expected. They're following a simple pattern. This is just a well-made NPC simulation. Inside the observation capsule, everyone is watching, completely stunned. Kim Legon can't believe it. that was supposed to be a practically useless sword. Let me show you a sword that makes no sense. No magic, no special skills. Yet this kid was slicing through everything with total, unbelievable mastery. It was like the sword was literally absorbing these monsters. The girl just stared. The boy just takes a moment, reflecting on all this madness. She watches him. Safe inside her protective capsule, she stands perfectly still, not saying a word. Her face is a mix of pure shock and complete confusion. Kim Joo-hyuk declares he wants to go to the Constellation room now that he's wiped out all these pathetic enemies. He walks away, heading for the protective barrier. He then demands the instructor make good on his promise. His voice dripping with anger and irritation. The sun is already setting between the massive buildings. Kim Leon wraps up his lecture, telling the exhausted students to get some rest in their dorms instead of hanging around. The boy is just slumped in his chair. Man, that class was long. He just wanted to grab his stuff and get out. He thinks about how he never wanted to teach anyone. He never even went to a real school himself in his past life. And while the class was mostly a drag, he did manage to learn a few things. Now pay attention, because this is where he gathers some critical intel on constellations. In his previous life, this whole concept just didn't exist. Constellations, a term for people who made so much money they became gods. These deities were almost always connected to the hunters. Valhalla in Korea, the third largest academy in the world, was packed with all sorts of constellation relics, but Kim Joo-hyuk wasn't impressed. He figured all this monster slaying and sword stuff was a waste of time. His plan: head to the dorm, focus on martial arts to strengthen his weak body. But just as he's about to leave, he notices someone. It's the white-haired girl, and she's walking up right behind him. Meanwhile, in the professor's office, a man sips his coffee, saying his friend had a rough day. Kim Leon just sighs, admitting it was more embarrassing than painful. He asks his friend Lee Sang-kyol, is that kid really a high schooler? Lee Sang-kyol is stunned. The boy killed 120 monsters in the simulation, without ever having seen one in his entire life. Yeah, what Kim Leon was saying was absolutely the truth. To the senior instructor, Kim Joo-hyuk looked normal, but he was definitely hiding something. Kim Leon was shocked to find out the kid was an orphan from a small orphanage. And it was in a super dangerous area. No way he was lying. Lee Sang-cho had already done his own background check on him. Besides, a con artist wouldn't try to get into Valhalla by making a huge scene at the opening ceremony. Lee Sang-kyol asks if it's true the boy requested the constellation room. Kim Leon gives a tired nod. Yep, it's true. The senior instructor says he'll let him go, but only to the first basement floor. Director's orders. His friend is incredibly grateful. After all, since he was the one who brought the kid here, he had to take some responsibility. He admits he knows nothing about the restricted fifth floor. But honestly, a quick visit to the first floor shouldn't cause any trouble. Kim Leon just sighs. He's worried about what might happen this year, leaving his friend and us totally confused. This class has 3 students from the 5 great families, and trust me, managing them is a nightmare. Even handling one is a challenge, a fact the senior instructor knows all too well. Instead of comfort, he mentions an exchange student from the notorious Ventric family. He's in the other class, which definitely gets his attention, Rockdale Ventric. A direct heir to the main family, Kim Leon's heard the rumors. This kid got kicked out. Expelled from the British Academy for being a total menace, he lets out a sigh. Still worried, but admits that after hearing that, his own situation suddenly seems better. At least he's not in the neighboring class. Kim Joo eyes the girl suspiciously. She just stares right back, not saying a thing, so he breaks the silence. He asks her what's up, and she asks him to teach her his swordsmanship. All of the techniques he just used. Kim Joo-hyuk is completely baffled. Doesn't get it at all. The girl is desperate to learn his sword style. But his answer is a flat no, and she immediately questions him. His reason, simple, he just doesn't feel like it, not his problem. And since she's got nothing else to say, he's leaving, but she looks him dead in the eye. One word, please. His answer doesn't change. He doesn't want to teach her. Now pay attention to how savage he gets. He calls her deaf and tells her to get lost. Kim Joo-hyuk has zero intention of ever being her teacher. He turns his back and just walks away, leaving her standing there alone, sad, disappointed. The next day, inside the epic halls of Valhalla, Kim Joo-hyuk sits alone. He's quiet, lost deep in thought, just staring into space in his classroom chair. He glances down at his hands, realizing this new body is better than he thought. But what good is it? He has no magical power and can't control his mana. There's only one way to fix this. He needs to find that thing. And for that, he'll need to prepare some magic, but suddenly, someone approaches. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. A blonde show-off. It's Rockel Ventric. He's got his assistant, Yura de Felix, with him as he strolls up to Kim's desk. Kim immediately asks who he is. Rockel can't believe this guy's ignorance. Doesn't he know the family name? He quickly introduces himself anyway. And says he doesn't want to waste any time, asks Kim a simple question. You want to get strong. He offers him a spot in the main Ventric family. In most families, the side branches struggle for power and money. Not like the main branch, but the Ventrics have a special guardian, a beak mask. A Constellation Guardian, that makes them different from everyone else. Usually an S-class warrior protects an organization, choosing a star member. They grant them power and protection, but the Ventric family does things differently. They signed a deal with someone who isn't a constellation, avoiding weird contracts. Because of this single, unique choice, their organization is on another level. They hold massive power in Europe. Joining them means gaining insane influence. And with that authority behind him, Rockel Ventrich has become a real piece of work. Completely arrogant. Let's rewind a bit. Not long ago, there was an incident. The incident at the British Academy that got him expelled, but he's not sweating it. Standing at the door with his assistant, he makes one thing crystal clear. He always gets what he wants, and trust me, getting expelled is just a minor setback. When you're from the Ventric family, they will always find a way to get you back in. On track, since that person would enjoy it way too much. Flashing back to the present, he decides to talk to Kim Joo-hyuk. He figures he can get the boy, who was the star of the entrance ceremony, on his side. All right, let's see his big power move. He offers the kid a proposal to join the Ventric family's constellation if he just accepts. But he gets arrogantly shut down. He just stands there, stunned, not knowing what to do. Even his assistant looks totally shocked. He is absolutely furious, but Kim Joo-hyuk wasn't born yesterday. He knew the guy wasn't genuinely interested. Rockel Ventric explodes, calling him a rude, disgusting brat. Suddenly, an authority figure shows up, ordering everyone back to their seats. And trust me, this is where it gets good. The instructor calls him out. This makes him even angrier, because the man uses his full name. The instructor was the senior, Lee Sang-cheol. He lays down the law about Valhalla's rules, reminding everyone this isn't some cushy academy. The show-off recognizes the man, knowing he's a combat instructor. He just grits his teeth, boiling with rage, and quietly returns to his seat with his servant. He swears he will meet Kim Joo-hyuk again someday. Kim just watches all of this with his red eyes, not saying a single word. Later that day, school ends. Kim Joo-hyuk reflects on how he learned nothing about the Constellation Hall during the lessons. Instead, he just got tangled up with an idiot that morning. He thinks about all the guild scouts, students, and instructors who desperately want to recruit him, even after he openly criticized them. Then someone approaches him from behind again. It's that persistent girl, asking him to teach her fencing. He gets annoyed, realizing she just doesn't get the hint. Back at the Grand Valhalla dormitory, inside the highest class hall, someone is seething, smashing chandeliers in an uncontrollable fit of pure fury. It was the arrogant Rockel Ventric, and yeah, I know what you're thinking, he's not taking it well. He is absolutely infuriated that the orphan Kim Ju-hyuk humiliated him. He demands Uricall for Dara immediately, saying he needs someone taken care of. At the end of the chapter, Rockdale Ventric is still simmering with rage. He again calls his poor assistant by her name. She stays perfectly still and silent as he speaks. He grabs her hair, yanking it forcefully and demanding she answer him now. He then asks if she still thinks she's the eldest daughter of the palace family. He threatens to kick the poor girl out of the group, making her beg him not to. He just slams her onto the ground with all his might. Once again, he orders her to call Dara, saying there's someone for him to deal with. He also tells her to find a second year from the Rise family and say he wants to see him. Terrified and helpless, his blonde assistant just says yes. Over at the Valhalla dormitory, inside Kim Ju-hyuk's room, he's meditating. A bright blue magic radiates from his body. He is completely focused on what he's doing. Suddenly he coughs and a cloud of smoke pours out. He realizes once again that his body is truly useless, unable to summon any magic. He enters a deep silence, lost in thought, and you and I are about to see just how deep this problem runs. He recalls returning to the dormitory that afternoon when the girl appeared behind him again. She approached him for the second time. They had already reached the dorm, but she just kept following him, repeating her request over and over like a parrot. He was so irritated he was about to just leave, so he threw out a number. 10 million won per lesson. The girl's face just fell, completely crestfallen. And since there was no way she could pay, he simply turned to walk away. But then she suddenly asked for his phone, leaving him totally confused. He had no idea what was going on. He asked why, and she started adding her number to make the payment transfer easier. Kim Ja-hyuk was just speechless. And then a notification hits his phone. You are not ready for this. It was a transfer for 100 million won to teach her his techniques. He immediately said no way and that he was rejecting the payment. Back in the present, he thinks about how utterly shocked he was. How on earth could a high school student just have 100 million won? He supposed he wouldn't have to reveal all his secrets to teach her. Still, that amount of money was just overwhelming. He could really use it for what he needed to do next, so who cared if his mana was basically zero? He stands up, ready for the real mission. Now watch as he takes his first steps to victory. He was going to find that secret vault. Plunging into the pitch-black darkness, he pushed his way through the dense vegetation, recalling his research. He knew most of the vaults hidden 300 years ago were already destroyed. According to his notes, only 4 might remain. Realistically, probably just 3. One thing was certain, though. They were here in the Valhalla Mountains. And he would search until he found one. He begins to channel his blue magic. The vaults can be found by sensing a special marble that reacts to his power. Even with his minimal energy, he could feel it. A bright circle began to glow. It appeared on the ground. Finally, I think you and I both know what this means. He approaches the glowing blue circle and starts digging with an iron shovel. And he's once again reminded of how pathetically weak his body is. He thinks if he knew it'd be this hard, he'd have buried it somewhere shallower. But if it wasn't for the Tower of Destruction 300 years ago, none of this would have been necessary. The world was on the brink of collapse. There was no safe place for his riches, so he built these incredible vaults. He stored everything inside, having faith that the contents would survive, and that they would be safe and intact as the sun rose over Valhalla. At last, Kim Ju found what he was searching for. He'd found it. The long-lost vault of treasure. The lock was hidden, but not from him. He found it instantly. A normal key wouldn't work, so he crafted a new one. A key made of pure magic. It fit perfectly into the ancient keyhole. He grins, a small victory. The massive door begins to grind open. Slowly, using every last bit of strength in his frail body, he pushes. At last, he steps into the vault, landing before countless golden treasures. A huge smile of pure joy lights up his face as he greets his riches. And with that, the chapter ends. he stares silently at all that money. With a thoughtful expression. Now that money wasn't an issue anymore. He could finally search for what he really needed, and then he saw it. Something that made him freeze. The storage stones were right there before him. He had imbued them with magic to maintain the vaults, and trust me, today was the day to use them. He's finally here. He picks up a magic stone, and it immediately starts pulsing with a bright blue light. That's the sign of a storage stone, all right, just overflowing with raw magical power. He stops drawing out its energy, figuring he'll deal with the other stones first. He decides to move the rest of them, starting with the lighter jewels. Lighter jewels first, then the heavy gold bars, all while it's a beautiful day in Valhalla. And of course, there's Kim Hyuk, passed out in his chair again like an absolute zombie. He's already thinking he must be a lunatic for planning to build a vault in the future. Trust me, his muscles are already screaming from this one little job. Suddenly, the girl appears. She's right in front of him again, asking him to teach her swordsmanship techniques. Oh yeah, she is definitely not going to let this go. He tries to figure it out. Now you and I both know something's off here. Why on earth would she pick him? He even asks Erin Choi why she's being so persistent when she could just learn from her family. She tells him she's never seen anyone handle a sword better than him. Better than Kim Hyuk, he pushes back, asking about her father. He is the head of the Trojan family, probably a way better swordsman than he is. But just as she's about to talk about her father, an instructor calls for Kim Hyuk. He's being summoned to the teacher's lounge, leaving him totally confused about what's going on. But it's all connected to the questions he asked before, and he desperately wants answers. So he gets up instantly, without a second of hesitation. He rises from his chair and just leaves, with the girl left standing right there completely stunned. She asks for a moment, her expression turning a little sad, but then Kim Hyuk speaks. He tells her to meet him the next day, 6 in the morning, at the local training grounds. The local training field. She is absolutely floored by what she just heard. The boy asks if she doesn't want the opportunity. That seems to snap her out of her daze. And I know what you're thinking. She instantly confirms she'll be there. Meanwhile, over in the teacher's lounge, the instructor sits down across from our boy. He's got a class in a few minutes, so he gets straight to the point. No delays. First things first, Kim Hyuk's access to the Constellation building has been approved. All he needs to do is head to the basement. However, there's a big restriction. He is not authorized to go to any floor below the first basement. He says he understands. Then he immediately asks when he can go. Turns out, he can head over tonight. He confirms he'll do it. Kim Minon is actually surprised by his reaction. He fully expected the boy to make a huge scene about not being allowed to go deeper. Finally, the two of them part ways to handle their own business for the day. Our boy leaves the room immediately. That night, darkness has fallen in Valhalla. This is the place he's been looking for. This is the treasure of Valhalla Academy. The Constellation Hall. The boy observes his surroundings, taking it all in. Two guards dressed in black stand watch, completely focused, and as he watches them, he sees one of them speaking into a radio, reporting to someone else. Kim Hyuk realizes the security here is way stronger than at the main gate, which just proves how ridiculously important the Constellation building is. He thinks about not just the guards, but something else, something even more powerful. The exterior walls, they're covered in all kinds of magic, completely surrounding the building. Totally sealed except for the entrance, Kim Hyuk decides to ask his professor a question. You and I are seeing this fortress, right? So he asks, how could anyone descend to the second floor? Trust me, you're about to see a guy break every rule for a hidden purpose. It wouldn't make him a criminal, Kim Limon replied, but it would get him expelled instantly. Plus, he'd probably go insane before even leaving, which left our boy a little confused. Kim Limon then explained that on the second floor, the raw magical power of the constellations flows without any restrictions. Anyone who touches that magic gets their mind completely shattered. Our guy got it. The instructor, meanwhile, wondered why he'd even ask about that place. It was almost like he actually planned on going down there. But he pushed the thought away, figuring the top-ranked student wouldn't throw away such a golden opportunity at the academy. Kim Lemon gives him the heads up. He only has 30 minutes. Our hero agrees, saying he'll be back in no time. Then the system panel appears again. It's flashing the same old orders as before. He gives it a quick look. But Kim Joo-haek couldn't care less about expulsion. He came to Valhalla for this one reason. So yeah, you and I both know he's going straight down. He starts descending, wondering why the building has so many endless stairs. Moving quickly, he suddenly spots something up ahead. The place looks like a massive, forgotten prison. He was certain the Constellation Hall was on the first basement level. None of this was adding up, making him hesitate to go deeper. Right then, the panel pops up again, informing him that the requirements have been met and he's being transported to the hall. He has no idea what's happening or where he's even going. And then he and the panel start to just fade away from the corridor. In the new location, a familiar voice greets him. It's his infamous enemy, Brace. He stares at Brace, his face a perfect mask of shock and terror. Brace just remarks that after 300 years, it's about time for their reunion. But mid-sentence, he gets a hard punch straight to the face. Kim Joo-haek delivered that blow himself, and damn, he was happy to see that cursed face. Brace tells his enemy to calm down, but only gets another punch for his trouble. He tries to de-escalate, begging for a proper conversation. But nope, he gets hit again. Kim Joo-haek only wanted one thing from him. His death. Every attempt Brace makes to stop the fight is completely useless. Soon he's on the ground, weakened and defenseless, as Kim Joo-haek starts to tire. He points out that he isn't the kind of guy who uses his fists. But this time is different. This time it's personal because Brace destroyed his future. And on top of that, Brace ruined his wealth, his honor, and all the years he had invested in his own disciples. Brace then asks if he isn't at all curious to know what kind of place this is. Kim Joo-haek admits that yeah, he is. The place doesn't seem to have anything special about it, Brace explains. This is an imaginary world, a self-contained space inside an ancient relic. Kim Joo-haek is floored. Everything he's seeing, according to Brace, is pure imagination because his physical body ceased to exist 300 years ago. He's been trapped inside this relic the whole time. The boy is deeply shocked. This reveal changes absolutely everything. Brace just smirks at him and declares that he has become a constellation. Don't blink, because this is where everything gets insane. For a second, he's just speechless, then pure rage as he lands another heavy punch. Brace's face eats the impact. Meanwhile, outside, instructor Kim Lemon is still waiting. He's been there a while when suddenly, a figure appears before him. It's Kim Joo-haek, getting searched by the local guards. Lemon immediately asks the boy if he did anything suspicious, but Joo-haek just says he looked around. He swears he didn't go any deeper, not interested in losing his head over it. The instructor just tells him to head home, and Joo-haek is quick to agree. He takes off, but on the way back, he flashes back to that insane reunion. Back to his worst enemy from his past life. He couldn't care less that Brace is a constellation now. All he wants is one thing, an answer about that transparent notification panel. Brace claims he knows nothing. Big mistake. He immediately eats another fist. Because Kim Joo-haek is absolutely not playing around, Brace tries to explain. He says that after he was killed, he was trapped inside that thing for 300 years. Completely powerless, hearing this, Joo-haek finally cools down a little. Opening his hand, he realizes Brace got the exact same kind of notification. Now pay attention. The info says Brace must contact the reincarnated Joo-haek to get his memories. And because of that mission, some shadowy figure has apparently shown up. It's making him question why he even became the owner of the Tower of Destruction. Joo-haek is floored. He has no idea who this mystery man is or what he's up to. Brace admits he doesn't know either. A huge chunk of his memory is just gone. It's not coming back all at once. He then flips the question back on Hyuk. What did his notification say? Hyuk explains his mission is to find a weapon and his memories. But the bottom part of the text, he can't read it. It's totally censored. He also doesn't feel like he's lost any memories because he still remembers everything. Brace suggests that maybe not everything has fully returned to his mind yet. Since he's already found the weapon, the rest should come back naturally over time. Hyuk is totally lost. Weapon, what weapon? Brace has to spell it out for him. This entire space is the realm of the 4 village swords. They've become sacred relics. And Brace only became a constellation because he once used one of them. Hyuk just calls him a cursed being, his rage flaring up all over again. Back in the present, Hyuk is trying to process all this. His village sword is a relic. I know what you're thinking. How can his sword house a constellation? It's nuts. He just wants to burn it all down and walk away, but there's a problem. Hyuk grips a blue magical sword tightly in his hand. He starts thinking about Brace again. The man once called the King of Destruction, and the new mission on his panel. It's only possible to clear it with that village weapon. Suddenly, he's interrupted. Someone demands his ID. Oh great, it's a bunch of bullies and show-offs. Their leader is Lyric Sunrise, the eldest son of the powerful Sunrise family. He says the seniors are out on a trip and demands Hyuk introduce himself. Hyuk just wonders what kind of pathetic bully preys on incoming freshmen. The goons start commenting on his attitude and his so-called lack of manners. One of them says he wants to teach the kid a lesson and gets a nod from his boss. He steps up to Hyuk, holding something, ready to intimidate him. But as he starts running his mouth about second years, he takes a massive kick. Right to the chest, and trust me, Hyuk is just getting started with these clowns. All that trash talk, and for what? The short-haired show-off could only groan in pain and agony from that last kick. Hyuk leaps, preparing another precise strike, and delivers a second blow, this time right to his talkative enemy's face. The guy goes flying, utterly destroyed and severely battered. He lands on his backside, making a loud thud before slamming into a wall and stopping abruptly. The blonde leader thinks Hyuk is completely insane and reckless. His eyes widen as he stares in absolute fear. He notices the boy, who just moments ago was unarmed, is now wielding a sword. Hyuk remarks that the perfect grip feels incredible, something he hasn't experienced in a very long time. He quickly orders the thugs to attack, shouting that if they hesitate, they'll all be crushed. 3 hours earlier, Rockdell Ventric told the blonde boy he only had to do one very simple thing. Just take care of a single weak, useless student. And in return, a huge reward for the Sunrise family would be delivered immediately. He even provides the ID for the first-year student he wants taken out. He said it doesn't matter if the kid uses weapons, as the mess will be cleaned up easily anyway. Finally, he asks if the boy will accept the deal. The blonde kid says he understands and takes the job. He leaves, slamming the door hard behind him without a second thought. He's thinking that the kid's first-place rank is meaningless because he's just a first-year novice and can't possibly compete with a second-year. Now here's why that rank difference matters. That gap in power is usually huge, thanks to the first year's contracts with the Constellations. Valhalla students visit the Constellation room in their second semester to form a contract, which is how they officially become second years. Once they're contractors, they can call upon and use the incredible power of their chosen constellation. And in the blonde's mind, Hyuk doesn't have a guardian. He figured it'd be an easy win, that he could crush the kid. That was the plan. But there was one huge problem with that little theory. At this very moment, our boy is already swinging his sword, cutting down yet another loudmouth thug. One of them curses at him, clutching a sharp, blood-red knife, but suddenly he hears a sound rushing towards him. It's the rookie's sword, coming to annihilate him without a shred of mercy. Out of nowhere, Kim Hyuk hears something else heading his direction. It's another thug trying a cowardly sneak attack from the side. The guy throws his sharp, pointed sword, but it just sticks in the dirt floor. The attacker stands there totally confused, having missed his big power move, and Kim Hyuk. He's already right beside him, mocking him without mercy. He promptly lands a precise sword strike right across the thug's ugly face. The attacker is sent flying from the spot, leaving his friends absolutely stunned by what they're seeing. And finally, after soaring through the air, he lands headfirst on the ground. Brutal, harsh, the blonde leader is in shock as this rookie takes down the second years one by one without even breaking a sweat. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Before becoming contractors, second years should already be way more skilled than first years. But these guys have proven to be totally useless and weak. The blonde wonders about this strange, unprecedented swordsmanship. It looks like the kid is just moving with average strength. But anyone he hits can barely even stand back up. Kim Ju then faces the last few guys and says he'll crush anyone left. The blonde punk thinks they're all just wasting time with this fight. He assumes they're deciding whether to attack or just run for it. He yells at his crew not to be afraid, that the kid is just a weak, useless rookie. But Kim Ju just smirks, commenting on the bully's serious lack of nerve. Totally triggered, the blonde kid charges straight at him without a second thought. But then he feels something. It's the cold steel of Kim Hyuk's sword on his body. Our main character mocks him for just standing there, knowing he was about to get hit. And with that, he lands one clean, powerful strike right on his opponent. Using his last bit of strength, the bully wonders how the rookie even got that close. And then he's out cold, so Kim Ju immediately starts slapping him awake. Yeah, you saw that right. He's slapping him awake to ask who they are and why they attacked. The dazed blonde boy admits that they're all senior veterans here. But Kim Hyuk knows something isn't right about this whole situation. This isn't just a random fight. He suspects someone else is pulling the strings. The pale kid with the earrings finally spills. It was just to rough up the number one rookie. Kim Hyuk scoffs at them, mocking their so-called loyalty as hired thugs. But as he turns to leave, the arrogant little punk calls out to him. He warns him that if anyone finds out about this, the rookie will be expelled. But Kim Ju couldn't care less. He says, go ahead, tell everyone. Tell them about how the seniors got absolutely embarrassed and destroyed. A whole group of second years tried to jump a freshman and got wrecked. Imagine how humiliating that would be if the story got out. He tells the blonde kid to think carefully if he ever wants to join a decent guild. And with that, Kim Ju walks away, leaving them all beats and humiliated on the ground. The clock hits 8:28. Elsewhere, Rockdale Ventric is anxiously waiting by the phone. Suddenly, he gets the call from Merrick Sunrise, and his face lights up. Now this is where we see the real villain. He immediately asks if the job is done. But the kid on the line just reveals the contractor's name, Rockdale's name. He calmly informs him that he's dropping the job and giving up all responsibility. And that's that. The next chapter opens with Rockdale Ventric still in shock. The blonde kid's words hit him like a truck. He was told to stay away. Stay away from anything and everything related to Kim Hyuk from now on. Rockdale can't figure out what went wrong. Just hours ago, he was so sure of himself. He tells the kid to file a report with the administration anyway. If there are any bruises left, that should be enough evidence to get Kim Ju in trouble. He promises if the kid does this, he'll get a fat reward for his trouble. He'll even get sponsored by Rockdale's powerful family, but it's no use. The boy knows that even with that kind of backing, their honor is already gone. And then he just hangs up, leaving Rockdale absolutely furious. He screams, cursing the kid before smashing his phone into the ground. His assistant just watches the whole meltdown, standing perfectly still and silent. Rockdale then calls for Yura, who immediately responds to his summons. She's already on it, but since Dare is so far away, it's going to take time. This just makes him angrier, and trust me, what comes next is on a whole other level. Meanwhile, all the way over in the beautiful country of Mexico, at the Valhalla Academy. All right, let's jump right in. A brute looms over a fallen man, glued to his high-tech phone. Amidst the chaos, this is the fearsome Dara Ventric, and he's just noticed his brother wants him in Korea. The mission, to deal with someone named Kim Hyuk. And the reward is already waiting. You can just see the dollar signs lighting up in his eyes. He thought his money problems were over after getting kicked out of his last gig. But now, looks like his luck is about to take a massive turn. The very next day, at 6 p.m. in Valhalla's Grand Training Hall, Kim Hyuk is totally blown away. The size of this place is massive, and he's already fired up. Ready to run for miles with pure determination, but suddenly, a voice cuts through the silence, questioning what he's doing there. And would you look at that, it's Barge, the sealed sword. Kim Hyuk is definitely surprised to see him. At first, Barge thought the kid had escaped. He was fully prepared to beat him down and drag him back to his prison. But since that's not the case, things between them are surprisingly cool. Hyuk plants his feet, starts stretching, and begins firing questions at his old enemy. He brings up the sword that became an artifact, the one currently being held in Valhalla, and how they managed to get it out of the Constellation room. Kim Hyuk is worried, because it turns out Barge swapped the real weapon for a nearly identical replica. Barge gets asked how he even learned to pull that off. And he replies that even after losing his power, he can still whip up forgeries like it's nothing, but even Barge himself doesn't know why he has these strange abilities. Then out of nowhere, the gray-haired girl shows up. While Kim Hyuk is still mid-stretch, her sudden appearance totally catches him off guard. She immediately asks about her swordsmanship lessons. But our boy isn't planning on teaching her a single sword move today. Nope. Instead, they're starting with improving her stamina. Now I know what you're thinking, and yeah, the girl looks just as confused. Still, she's absolutely determined to learn, ready to do whatever it takes. Kim Hyuk tells her to start stretching immediately, and she quickly gets to it. It might seem basic, but she desperately needs to build her stamina to absorb mana better and control it with more ease. Right now, his training method feels pretty weird, since it's ignoring the very thing she came to learn. Koi Aaron, despite having a huge mana pool, only has the physical stamina of a regular student. She tells him she's done stretching. Kim Hyuk immediately announces that the real training starts now. The two of them immediately drop and start banging out tons of push-ups. Then they move on to squats, pushing through with sheer willpower. After that, it's on to upper body exercises. Koi Aaron is completely wiped, collapsed on the floor, totally destroyed and gasping for air. But she's stunned to learn that this was just the beginning of this crazy, intense workout. Kim Hyuk tells her to quit slacking and get on her feet right now, because they still have a grueling 20-kilometer run ahead of them. Meanwhile, back in Valhalla's first-year Class A, Kim Hyuk thinks about the girls' condition, noting that her body has massive potential for development. She's right next to him, looking exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and an expression that says she's been through a war. The class teacher then calls for silence. The superior class instructor and supervisor has just arrived. All right, stick with me, because you're about to see a classroom showdown of epic proportions. It starts with the teacher, Lilia, announcing a surprise written exam for the day. She'd warned them on day one to study up, and now it was time for a test. The topic, how to deal with every single type of monster. The exam started immediately. Everyone seemed to be racking their brains, poring over the questions, even Koan. She looked like she was seriously struggling with the test. Meanwhile, Kim Hyuk just stared at her, like she was the most dangerous enemy he'd ever faced. Suddenly, the teacher checks the time. On a watch that looks way too advanced and stylish for a classroom, she calls it time's up. She gives everyone instructions on how to hand in their papers. This one test, she says, won't count for the official rankings, but it will decide how they're grouped for the next class. After collecting all the tests, she drops another bombshell on them. Next week, they'll have their first official lesson inside the virtual combat communication room. And with that, she says her goodbyes and quickly leaves the classroom. Kim Joo-hyuk just stays silent, a thoughtful look on his face as he processes everything. That's when Brace walks up, asking him what kind of weird method he used on the test. Joo-hyuk is shocked. He had no idea Brace was watching him the whole time. His rival says he was bored and then asks what he thinks about the protagonist. He clarifies that he can only hear the boy's thoughts when they're related to him. Kim Joo-hyuk just calmly says he wrote the answers exactly as he knew them. His rival just nods, saying he understands. Meanwhile, in another part of Valhalla, inside the first-year teacher's lounge, Lilia is absolutely fuming over Kim Joo-hyuk's test. How dare he call those useless, rambling phrases actual answers? Just then Kim Lingun happens to be walking by, a cup in his hand. He hears something strange. He sees the teacher, looking completely furious and on the verge of exploding. He approaches and asks if those are the tests from his class. You're going to want to see this. She says yes, explaining her method for prepping the next lesson. She points out that there's valuable information hidden inside this seemingly simple test. She notes that, as expected, Class A, all prodigies from the best families, did amazing. Every single one of them. This leaves Kim Lingun looking pretty surprised. He just says he'll be on his way, and the teacher nods in agreement. He goes back to sipping whatever's in that white cup of his. But then a massive scream startles him so bad, he spills his entire drink. It's her absolutely losing her mind over Kim Joo-hyuk's test paper. He rushes over, asking if the so-called prodigy boy didn't even try. But then he sees it. The kid wasn't just lazy, he was openly mocking the entire class. He's left completely speechless, absolutely shocked. Lilia declares this can't be ignored. She's going to display all his answers in the next class, just to show everyone that you can't deal with monsters using his ridiculous methods. 1 week later, we're in the virtual combat simulation at Valhalla. Lilia announces she's graded the tests. And while most of the students did incredibly well, there was one exception. She orders Kim Joo-hyuk to step forward, and without a moment's hesitation, he does. The two of them stand there, facing each other down. Lilia holds out his test. It is covered, absolutely bleeding with red correction marks. Then she drops the bomb. Kim Joo-hyuk received a 0, a big fat 0. She says he clearly didn't take it seriously, but he fires back, insisting he did. Questions for him. First up, what's the most effective way to take down a stone goblin? Kim Joo-hyuk's answer, just smash it right in the stomach. And the second question, what to do if you're charged by 8 wild goblins at once? Kim Joo-hyuk's simple solution. Send every single one to hell, starting with the one closest to you. The teacher couldn't believe what she was hearing. He wasn't even trying to hide the fact he was barely trying. Everyone knows the best way to kill a stone goblin isn't with a normal sword. It's just not strong enough to do the job. Lilia doubted Kim Joo-hyuk could even manage it. But he shot back at his teacher, claiming he'd finish the fight in a single clean strike. She was getting pretty irritated with his non-stop nonsense and his massive ego, but she also saw his confidence. So, since Kim Joo-hyuk was so sure of himself, she decided to give him a very special chance. Suddenly, a huge roar echoed through the arena. A monster bellowed, trying to intimidate everyone there. It stood right in front of the prodigy boy and our main character. And that's when the teacher laid down the challenge. If he could kill the stone goblin exactly how he described, she would change his test grade on the spot. Kim Joo-hyuk just nodded, understood. He casually placed his test paper down on the control table. He then walked over, picked a single sword from the weapon rack, and charged the goblin without a second of hesitation. The goblin stared back with a horrifying, twisted expression on its face. The teacher knew he'd killed 120 goblins before, so she had faith in his talent. But here's the thing, against a stone goblin, any random sword just wouldn't be enough. Then out of nowhere, the goblin started screaming in pure agony. The boy was already landing impossibly precise blows. The teacher was just stunned by what she was seeing. The goblin groaned, a massive wound ripped open in its body, and a deep crack spreading across its head. Hyuk then began to channel his mana into the fight. He tossed the simple sword aside and finished the battle easily, almost looking bored. With one single strike to the goblin's stomach, the fight was over. A little girl nearby was blown away. He had killed a stone goblin with just a sword, no magic at all. The big blonde guy watched in total, shocked silence. Even Choi Irene was visibly amazed by it all. Lilia let out a deep sigh and just had to ask how he pulled that off. He simply explained that he hit the goblin in the stomach, leaving his teacher even more confused. She knew that to kill a stone goblin with a sword, you'd need to be at least an A-class contractor. That was just simple logic. And yet this kid did it with just a weapon. He then asked if his answer was correct, but Lilia told him no. That was only one question, and there were plenty more to come. The boy was confused, feeling like he was stuck in a loop. Then, the ground started to split open. He was amazed by what he saw. A huge, dark tunnel stretched out into nothingness. Kim-ju immediately asked his teacher what this was all about. She just told him to focus and look straight ahead. A faint footstep was heard. A few more monsters started to crawl out from the darkness of the tunnel. She knew how tricky it was to control enraged goblins. One wrong move could trigger their scream, calling in a whole horde. All right, stick with me here. You're about to see a classic goblin hunt with a big brain twist. Most people would just run. Now he only sees 3 goblins in front of him, but he knows that every single mistake will spawn 5 more out of nowhere. Even with a sword, this is a tough fight, and Lilia heard his swordsmanship is slow. He explodes into a series of strikes, aiming true for his target. The first blow lands square on its forehead, sending the other goblins into a fury. One of them stays alert during the chaos, but gets rocked by a clean shot. A punch to its cursed mouth sends it crashing brutally to its knees. The teacher is absolutely stunned, and our boy is feeling proud for acing the second question. Meanwhile, over at the Valhalla Training Center, Kim Ju-hyuk and Choi-rin are training. They're on the treadmills, running at a completely insane and inhuman pace. Seriously, the speed numbers are literally off the charts, but soon, the gray-haired girl collapses onto the floor, completely and utterly exhausted. She's left gasping for air, while Kim Ju-hyuk just watches without saying a word. He has this almost amused look on his face, asking if her clan even trains at all. She's struggling with such a simple exercise. She admits that no, they don't. She doesn't push herself this way, and he hits back, asking how she expects to fight. The truly strong and horrifying monsters out there, she has an answer, though. She can just use her magical power, borrowing strength directly from the constellations. Kim-ju thinks to himself, yep, just as expected, they don't build their own stamina. They just focus on magical power, relying 100% on the constellations. I mean, why bother with physical training when you can borrow godlike power, right? But here's the thing you and I both know, the risks are absolutely massive. There's always a chance of being trapped deep inside a labyrinth or a dungeon. What happens if you run into a magic restricting spell? Your powers are useless. On top of that, your mana could get completely wiped out after a long battle. Not to mention, the constellations might just decide not to lend you their power. After thinking all this through, Kim-ju calls out to the girl on the floor. He asks if she really thinks these stamina exercises are worth anything to her. Without hesitation, she says yes, because he promised to teach her swordsmanship if she did them. He's totally stunned by her answer, because yeah, that was the whole reason. He just never expected her to be so direct about it. She's a bit confused by his silence. But they brush it off, deciding to wrap up the day's training before heading to the academy. She then realizes he's not leaving with her and asks him why. Kim Ju-hyuk just says he's going to do one more round of physical exercises. He starts to ask if she wants to join him, but quickly reconsiders and drops it. Choi Erin quickly says her goodbyes and leaves, leaving Kim Joo-hyuk alone in the gym. He picks up a giant weight, and a voice asks if Choi Erin is the girl's real name. It's his enemy Brace. Kim Joo confirms it is. The villain seems surprised. He's astonished she went through that brutal training without a single complaint. Kim Joo-hyuk just explains that he only agreed to teach her swordsmanship because she was so ridiculously persistent that he finally gave in. Brace asks another question if he ever told her the truth. He says no, but he suspects that she probably already knows, and they both find that pretty interesting. The girl figured out his true strength just by watching. She's smarter than she looks. Skills when suddenly he heard a noise. It was a seriously jacked dude bench, pressing a ridiculous amount of weight right there in the room. He was drenched in sweat, groaning from the sheer effort, and then he noticed Kim Joo-hyuk's presence. The two of them just stared at each other, not a word. Kim Joo-hyuk finally asked the guy how long he'd been there. The man explained he'd been around since the beginning, since it was his habit to always train right after class. He then quickly excused himself and left the area. Kim Joo-hyuk started analyzing the guy's martial skeletal structure and skills. But Brace immediately piped up, asking why he was so interested in that musclehead. He explained that a guy like Hyuk was destined to be smarter than those who only train magic. Kim Joo-hyuk then asked Brace what those cursed constellations were up to which Brace replied that, honestly, he wasn't entirely sure. Our boy just mocked him. Is that really all you can tell me? Brace explained that even as a constellation, he's been isolated for 300 years. He knew nothing about the others. But he mentioned Kim Joo-hyuk could probably learn more if he completed the new mission in his system tab. Now, you and I know what that means. This left Kim Joo-hyuk deep in thought, mulling over the whole thing. Just then, the panel popped up with some new information and a few precautions. It pointed to the center of the great Valhalla forest, home to the Mandragora. He knew that place. It was mentioned in class as the final survival location they visited during their first semester. He thought to himself, if it weren't for this cursed mission, he'd just grab his stuff and get out of there. But it seemed he had to play it stealthy for now. Brace immediately called him out on his thoughts. Joo-hyuk quickly justified it, flashing back to the last brutal fight that happened. He said if he hadn't done what he did, his head would have been totally crushed, just like Brace's had been. Ouch, Kim Joo-hyuk also figured that, in any case, until he finished the mission. He couldn't leave, so the secrets of reincarnation would just reveal themselves sooner or later. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in London. We're at the Ventric Mansion, and yeah, this place has a very specific vibe. We're talking old-fashioned details, with creepy paintings covering every single wall. A huge table comes into view, with a man and a woman seated at opposite ends. And the woman immediately starts her interrogation. This is Adelia Ventric. She's the vice head of the household, and she's demanding to know what went down. The man reports that the labyrinth near Reading has officially been cleared. Adelia congratulates him on it, and then asks if there's anything else to report. He mentions he's considering recruiting a few competent guys he met along the way. He specifically brings up a survivor from the robber clan, which gets her attention. She asks for more details, and he says the man is incredibly strong, while the others are class contractors. Adelia agrees to grant them the Ventric Blessing, a major honor. She just instructs him to run some capability tests for them first, to which he agrees. She asks again, so is that all for today? And suddenly there's a shift. Turns out he has one more report, this one concerning Rockdale Ventric. He mentions hearing about a recent incident and informs her that Desir had been summoned all the way to South Korea. This makes Adelia absolutely furious, her face twisting with rage. You see, Desir Ventric is the black sheep of his family, and trust me, that name is about to cause some chaos. He'd used the family name to commit some truly heinous acts, including killing 5 people at the British Academy at 19. all because of a simple argument. By 20, the Ventric family had completely cut him off. Adelia knew he'd been in hiding for years and was now about to meet with Rockel. So she gave the order, put surveillance on Rockel, effective immediately. She got a firm confirmation. Her man was also told to deliver a message. Let that arrogant young punk know if he's caught doing anything suspicious. He's getting kicked out of the family for good. Her man acknowledged the order once again, completed his report, and excused himself. Leaving Adelia all alone in that massive room, she sat there in silence, her expression deep in thought, thinking about all those cursed fools using powers they didn't even earn. That kind of ability was something else entirely. On her chair, the words were inscribed, all for one, and everything is only for one person. In the end, every power was destined to be hers. Lost in her thoughts, she looked for confirmation from something in the room, the eerie painting of the Guardian constellation hanging on the wall. Meanwhile, back at Valhalla, the professor was breaking down the word malefactor. In modern times, this term was basically used to describe anyone who used constellation powers for evil. Now pay attention, because this next part's a big deal. Malefactors worked alone or in groups, and the most notorious one was Own a God. Hyuk was thinking that while exercise made him feel stronger, he also had a natural talent for using mana, not genius level, but way better than before his reincarnation. Still, something felt off. It made him wonder why his body had been in such terrible shape before. When he tried to circulate his mana on the first day, he could barely finish. It was lower than an average person's. And his body was so weak that just digging a little made him feel like he was going to pass out. But even with a body like that, it shouldn't have been that bad. He figured something must have happened, but there was no point stressing over it now. Suddenly, a finger tapped his desk. He looked over, calm as ever. It was the beautiful Yu So-yan. She dropped a crumpled piece of paper right in front of him, leaving him surprised. On the paper, written in big letters, was just one word: hi. Hyuk wondered what this was all about. A little later, Kim Limon announced that students could leave campus for the weekend, but they'd have to submit a separate request form. And with that simple announcement, class was over. Hyuk immediately thought about getting off campus. He quickly filled out a request for a Saturday trip, using a pretty lame reason. Brace was surprised by his decision and asked him if he was serious about it, and where he was even planning to go, but before he could answer, a voice called him. It was a cute girl wearing a hair tie. The two of them had a quick chat about what happened just a few hours ago. Turns out Hyuk had replied to her note politely, but she never wrote back. He pushed her to speak up, saying he had to submit his form and was in a hurry. But the poor girl just stumbles over her words, too shy to form a single sentence. And trust me, Hyuk is getting frustrated, calling her crazy and telling her to just nod. Okay, you and I are jumping right into some classic high school drama. He tells her getting people riled up for no reason is kind of her thing. Then he cuts through the noise and asks what she really wants. Her mind flashes back to a moment she was watching something, Hyuk's fight against that horrifying and ugly stone goblin, and she was seriously impressed. Especially because he used only a sword, no magic, not a single spell. It was completely different from what the books described. She just wanted to ask him how he actually killed that stone monster, but her pride was way too big to let her. Finally, she sighs, mustering the courage to ask, but just as she opens her mouth, the teacher appears, asking the exact same question she was about to. The gray-haired woman with the glasses seems beyond excited to learn the boy's secrets. Hyuk is just thinking, where did this crazy lady even come from? He immediately asks why she's butting in, especially since he thought she disliked him. This just leaves her confused, so he tries rephrasing his words. Asking if she's still mad because he publicly embarrassed her, the teacher just laughs. She quickly replies that she couldn't care less about that and had always believed There was only one way to kill monsters, but he just proved her wrong. She wants to know everything right now. She even asks if he'll be her assistant. His answer is a hard no, explaining that he needs to submit his departure form. The woman tries everything she can think of to convince him, but it's no use. With basically zero success, the two of them end up just walking away. Leaving the poor girl standing there completely alone, she replays the teacher's comments. Totally confused, she takes a deep breath, calms herself down, and hits reset. She decides to just let it go. Who needs that kind of humiliation? The next day, Kim Joo-hyuk is standing before something amazing, a massive, sprawling market. All right, let's switch gears here. We're moving from school drama to black market economics. Joo-hyuk sits in front of his gaming computer when Grace asks his host what he is doing. He was just searching for information on his phone about the next day's location. Our protagonist was trying to find a place to sell his newfound treasures. A spot where he could unload the items from the vault, and this one seemed perfect. If the enemy understood everything, then he had definitely found it. He discovered a virtual marketplace that existed right there on his phone. Based on his intel, you only had to pay an entry fee to trade basically anything. Now pay attention, because this explains how the whole underground economy in this world works. The reason such a bizarre marketplace even exists comes down to one simple fact. Its creator was a guardian constellation known as the Secret Ruler, according to our hero. And because of that, high-class individuals openly use the platform. And despite it being completely illegal, the governments wouldn't dare interfere. Which is also the very reason he managed to figure out how to get access so easily. So he decides to use it. Kim Joo-hyuk reads a few simple tutorials on the internet. He soon notices there was a link hidden in the comments section of the post. Suddenly, he gets some messages from the little girl, Choi Ain. It's just a wall of crying bunny emojis. She then informs her trainer of her plans. She won't be at training the next day, and he just replies that he also has commitments. Kim Joo-hyuk even sends a few laughing emojis in between his messages. Let's jump into this, where one text message kicks off a seriously wild night. He explains he was just wishing her a good trip, and could she please stop with all the emojis? Kim Joo-hyuk shrugs off the virtual bunnies because he has a much bigger goal. Securing a reservation at a very secret location. He taps a shady link on his phone screen, and a moment later, he leaves his house dressed in all black, with a long hoodie pulled over his head. The destination is nearby, what looks like an old, run-down cafe in the area. And there it is, right in front of him. The worn-out wooden door of the building is old, and inside is a complete mess. Kim Joo-hyuk pushes open the gates and steps inside cautiously. His objective is simple. Get inside and find the corner he's looking for. The spot is nearby. He opens a gray door and steps slowly into another room, and that's when he sees it. Something incredible. You and I just discovered the legendary Grand Black Market. Night has already fallen, and the moon is shining brightly in the dark sky. But something feels off to Kim Joo-hyuk. Even though this is his first time here, the scene feels bizarrely familiar to him. That purple sky, the clouds, the moon, it's the exact same view he saw 300 years ago. Suddenly, a voice asks if this is the kid's first time here. The guy has a cheerful face, dressed in black with bangs covering his forehead. Kim Joo-hyuk wonders if this is the employee from the online posts he saw. The leather jacket is a dead giveaway. The man confirms it with a nod and starts explaining the market's rules, but our hero only knows the basics. He immediately hands over a thick stack of cash, which the guy pockets with a thank you. Kim Joo-hyuk thinks about the money he just spent and the fortune he's about to earn. Okay, now we get to his real question. He needs to know the best place to sell the jewels he brought with him. But he isn't looking to auction them off like the man assumes. Instead, he just wants to unload them fast. The man tells him to go to the market in the 3rd district, saying the merchants there will buy anything. Kim Ju-hyuk then asks who the most trustworthy dealer in the area might be. And the man's reply is simple, a guy named Morris, known for the best prices around. The man in black points him toward the 3rd district, leaving our young hero very grateful. But he has one last piece of advice. He strongly recommends that Kim Ju-hyuk wear a mask in that area. He explains that because of the sketchy items traded there, everyone wears one. To cover their face pretty much all the time, in that mask. It's a complimentary gift for Kim Ju-hyuk, who thanks him from the bottom of his heart. The guide tells him to enjoy his time here in the grand black market. Now in the 3rd district, we see a man in a white mask looking over a beautiful, sparkling diamond. A moment later, Kim Ju-hyuk approaches, asking for his name. It's confirmed, this is the real Morris, the one with the great prices. Our protagonist tells him he has some very valuable items to sell. Morris says it depends on the goods. But if it's just gold or jewelry, the appraisal will be quick and easy. So Kim Ju-hyuk starts pulling things out of his bag, and trust me, what's inside is about to shock everyone. All right, stick with me, because a mysterious bag is about to change everything. Morris watched, wondering what could possibly be inside. He immediately started to evaluate the ring placed before him. And then it hit him, he was staring at something truly unbelievable. That ring was a rare artifact from the era of destruction. An ancient and priceless treasure, no matter how you looked at it. Morris wondered if the other items were just as incredible. Inside the bag, a whole collection of them shimmered brightly. The man in the white mask confirmed it, they were all from the same legendary era. Suddenly, a voice called out to him, snapping him back to reality. It was Kim Ju-hyuk, asking for a price on the whole lot. The appraiser had no idea what to do, wondering how a kid this young acquired such treasure. He had to ask, where did you even get all of these? But the kid just shot back that this wasn't the place for those kinds of questions. Morris, who was known for his fair prices, quickly apologized for his slip-up. He couldn't believe his mistake, risking the good reputation he'd built as a trader. He then confessed that he had no idea what to offer for everything. He just couldn't process these items, all artifacts from the era of destruction. He simply didn't have the capital to buy them all at once. Kim Ju-hyuk then asked where he could go to get a proper price. Morris told him about the massive auction building just down the way. But then came the next question, how long would the auction actually take? He explained it would be 2 to 3 weeks, due to a long line of sellers. After another question, Kim Ju-hyuk realized he'd have to return in person. He let out a sigh, frustrated by all the complicated procedures. So he cut to the chase and asked for the approximate auction value. This question made Mr. Morris pause and think for a long moment. He took out his phone, showed him the number, and watched the young man's jaw drop. The kid just stared at all the zeros on the screen. He knew they were expensive, but not that expensive. No wonder he'd held on to them. He then asked how much of that total value Morris could actually afford. The man admitted he only had about 3/4 of the total, and that's if he sold everything he owned. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but get this, Kim Ju-hyuk asks if he's serious. And then, without a second thought, he agrees to the offered price. The man in the white mask was completely stunned, shocked, and utterly bewildered. You see, artifacts from the era of destruction were valuable for more than just their age. The main reason was their connection to the constellations. These beings appeared after that era and had a strange affinity for its artifacts. Morris knew that even a powerless person could use these items. They could forge a contract with a powerful constellation, all thanks to these objects. The alchemist zone inside them was still humming with energy. Holding the shimmering magical ring, he was blown away all over again. The mana flowed perfectly through the accessory, as if no time had passed at all. The magic from the end of the era was still there, clear as day. And that, my friends, is how you and I just saw him buy 8 legendary artifacts for a total steal. He grabbed the small bag where he just stashed the jewels. The guy was celebrating, thinking this was the luckiest day of his life. But then he felt a presence behind him, his eyes shot wide with terror. A man in black, wearing a terrifying black mask. And just like that, this poor guy's role in the story was over. Elsewhere, a massive door creaks open. Kim Joo-hyuk shoves it with all his might. The second he's through, he rips the mask off his face. Man, that thing was so uncomfortable he thought he was seriously going to suffocate in there. The place looks just like the cafe from his starting point. He immediately pulls out his phone, straight to his bank account history. And with that one sale, his money problems are officially over. He can't help but smile, thinking about the cash he made from those 8 rings. Kim Joo-hyuk is feeling pretty good because he's got plenty more where that came from. No more money issues, but then a strange notification pops up. It's a call from a totally unknown number. He answers it without even thinking. The woman on the other end immediately invites him to come grab a meal with her. He's like, "Who is this? How'd you get my number?" And she rushes to explain. Turns out she's a teacher from Valhalla, and almost immediately she gives him the address for the restaurant, not even giving him a second to ask any more questions. He's left pretty annoyed after she just hangs up on him. Still, Kim Joo-hyuk figures he might as well go. He's got nothing better to do. Plus, this girl is basically offering to spend all her money on a free meal for him. So yeah, a very weird invitation. Now, let's jump back for a second. We're back with the merchant, Morris, facing that same man in black. Morris asks what he's doing here, and the man just questions if their relationship is really on such bad terms. Morris explains that a regular merchant can't just casually chat with the owner of the entire market. Turns out, this man is the owner, the one they call the Black Cat, who says he actually admires the merchant for not kissing up to him. Morris just asks again why he's here. The Black Cat says it's nothing major. He just found it a bit odd that the merchant was suddenly joining the auction after being away for so long. A little too strange. Morris fires back that the anonymous registration system clearly has some serious flaws. But the Black Cat explains that as the owner and a Constellations agent, he can access literally any information he wants. And with that, he immediately asks to see the items Morris put up for auction. Morris agrees, no problem, but he's thinking to himself that this is all very suspicious. The owner has never shown this kind of interest before. He casually tosses the black bag, the one with the items from the era of destruction, right onto the table. The Black Cat just stares, completely lost in thought. Speechless, he finally mutters something about their value, leaving Morris totally confused about what he's talking about. Then, out of nowhere, a system panel flashes to life. The constellation on the other side is watching. And trust me, it is in absolute shock. The message just keeps repeating. The Black Cat instantly gets it. His constellation wants those rings, badly. And that's where we leave this intense chapter. Meanwhile, at the Valhalla restaurant, a fork gently twirls some delicious-looking pasta as the meeting is about to begin. Brings it to her mouth. The teacher savors the food, slowly commenting on how absolutely delicious it is. But a moment later, she seems a little confused. She asks why Kim Joo-hyuk isn't eating. And he just says he's wondering how a place like this even exists in Valhalla. She explains that besides the main cafeteria and staff restaurant, there are normal spots like this. But you can tell Kim Joo-hyuk is not interested. He cuts straight to the point. Why did you call me here? For a second, she's totally speechless. Then she asks him to be her assistant, but he immediately shuts her down. The teacher begs him not to refuse so fast, promising tons of benefits with the internship. She pleads with him just to listen for a second. Since it was obvious she was going to ask this, now watch this. Kim Joo-hyuk shows a tiny spark of interest. Benefits? He asks. The teacher says he'd get a scholarship and other financial aid, but he still doesn't look impressed. He'd also get the chance to co-author a paper with her, maybe on the 3 types of monster attacks. If he did that, his name would be listed in the World Association of Monster Research, bringing him fame and fortune. But still, he doesn't care. The teacher keeps pushing, even offering him extra days off from school. Kim Joo-hyuk remains completely unmoved, leaving her scrambling in her head for a better offer. She even tries to appeal to his massive ego. That fails miserably. Frustrated, she tries to just order him to do it. Kim Joo-hyuk's response is the same: he doesn't want to. To him, none of her proposals are even remotely tempting enough to consider. His one and only goal right now is reaching the center of the Great Forest. And even with her as his instructor, passing the performance evaluation would be tough. And there it is, the checkmate. You and I just saw him end this whole negotiation. He flat out says he doesn't want to be an assistant or write papers, leaving her totally defeated, but then she pivots. How about an information exchange? She offers to trade some juicy news for the secrets behind his incredible monster attacks. Now he's interested. He quickly learns the gossip is about Choi Aaron. But Kim Joo-hyuk quickly says he's not interested anymore, thinking he was just helping the girl. But then he hears she might get disowned by her own family. He's left a bit stunned by this and immediately tries to leave, making his teacher absolutely desperate. Kim Joo-hyuk explains he's finished eating, the benefits weren't good enough, and it's time to go. The teacher gets furious because she expected to get some information out of this. He just shrugs, saying he doesn't care that he heard everything. Then Kim Joo-hyuk asks for permission to ask a question he's genuinely curious about. Why is she so strict in class when she's acting this childish right now? She explains that because she teaches about monsters. Things could get dangerous if the students treated it all like a joke. Their lives are on the line. And since the students are a bit foolish, she has to be extra strict. Kim Joo-hyuk thinks it's just some simple ideology. But for her, it was the duty of a true teacher. He just scoffs at this in his usual arrogant way. And just as he turns to leave, the teacher calls out his name. Again, she tries to grill him for information, but gets absolutely nowhere. And just like that, those tense, funny scenes come to a close. Meanwhile, over in Sejang. Inside the Cho Jin family temple, a man sits at a table before two young people. This is the guild leader, Choi Jan-seok, and he's called them here for one reason. He needs to know their intentions before the big classification test to protect the family's name. One of them is a combat leader from the True History group. None other than the eldest son of the Cho Jin family, Cho Jin-jin. The second person there is another family member, a young woman known as Choi Rin. Now pay attention, because this is where the stakes get insane. The leader explains that if they pass, they'll get the chance to form a contract through Chanwoo, a sacred relic. A symbol reserved only for the true successors of the family, but there's a massive catch. If they fail, they're cut off, kicked out of the family, no questions asked. Cho Jan-seok looks them dead in the eye and asks if they're really ready for this. The boy says yes without a single moment of doubt. Choi Rin follows suit. She answers immediately, and the leader just stares at them both for a few long moments. Deep in thought, Cho Jan-seok decides it's time to give them all the details. He tells them the test will be held in 3 weeks and that they're dismissed for now. They nod and begin to slowly walk towards the temple exit. But then Cho Jin-jin suddenly asks if the girl managed to read the stars. She looks at him totally confused, having no idea what he's talking about. So he rephrases, did she see their father's reaction when she agreed to the test? She stays quiet, thinking it over for a few seconds. Her brother then smirks. He comments that Choi Arn is obviously desperate to become the family leader, and to prove that she's a legitimate daughter, not just an outsider. Hearing that, you can see the anger rising in her. She's getting furious. But her brother just keeps pushing her buttons, mocking her threatening glare. He doubts she even has a chance of passing the test. He keeps pouring salt on the wound, saying she hasn't even received a blessing from a constellation. She'd be no match for him, since he's already got a foreign contract. The girl looks absolutely heartbroken hearing all of this from her own brother. He tells her she might as well give up and just keep living off the family's money. But that it would cost her. He says he'll see her in exactly 3 weeks. And with that, he walks off, leaving the poor girl all alone in that massive hall. And that's when she starts seeing visions of a woman from her past. This woman once told Charon to become the family leader, because with that power, she'd finally be free to do whatever she wanted. And that's when she snaps back to reality. You and I just saw it. Her eyes are open, fearless, absolutely determined to win. Back in classroom 1A, a different scene is unfolding. All the students are glued to the teacher's lesson, all except for Kim Hyuk. He seems a million miles away. He's actually shocked that Brace is worried about the school's midterm exams. Our main character admits he never pays attention in class anyway, so he couldn't care less. The gray-haired teacher is going on about how everyone should know the importance of Valhalla's midterm exams. It's because in both the midterms and finals, students with the highest scores get a chance to change their constellation. Let's dive into a school where one bad test means you're out, for good. The teacher lays it on thick: organize yourselves and prepare for everything. Theoretical and practical tests are coming, and low scores mean expulsion. For our guy Kim Hyuk, the practical part is a piece of cake. The book smarts, though, that's what he's worried about. He has to stay here. His goal is the center of the great forest, but he has no idea how to get there. So he does what any genius would do. He calls his buddy Bart, who picks up instantly. He asks if Bart's already aced most of these classes before, and gets a confident yes. And here's his master plan. Get this, he's just gonna have Bart take the test for him. This, of course, leaves poor Bart completely baffled by the idea. Kim Hyuk says he'll just check his answers to make sure nothing looks suspicious. Bart thinks this is seriously unfair, like having someone else fight your battles. But Kim Hyuk shuts that down, saying that's how the world works anyway. So he might as well just get it done. Meanwhile, the professor dismisses the class. Everyone packs up for the day, wishing each other luck on their work. Kim Hyuk grabs his backpack, ready to bolt out of there. But just as he's heading for the door, a voice calls out his name. He turns around and asks the young girl what she wants from him. She asks if they're still on for training today. He says yeah, of course. Why? And just says she doesn't want to stop, which leaves him a little surprised. Kim Hyuk figures it's about time she learned some real swordplay. He assumes she's probably never even held a proper sword before. He clarifies it's not some fancy fencing style or complex martial art. He's just going to show her the basics of how to handle a real weapon. Besides, he thinks, it's way past time she got serious with her training. He tells her to meet him at the Academy's training hall. She immediately agrees. And that wraps up Chapter 17. Now, let's follow them to the school's training hall. Inside, Kim Hyuk asks and how long it's been since she used her sword. She admits it's been a day and a half since she last even touched the thing. Lately, all her focus has been on pure strength training. Her trainer realizes that before this, she was practicing with it every single day. He tells her to draw her sword, and she does, firmly, seriously, with total focus. Kim Hyuk then starts giving her instructions on a more professional grip. At first, she's a little confused about what to do with her fingers. But when she finally gets the hand and wrist position just right, something incredible happens. A faint glow envelops the blade. She has no clue what's going on, but it's her own mana, manifesting beautifully. And is stunned. She didn't even try to infuse it with magic. The sword suddenly feels more stable than it ever did, even with a two-handed grip. Kim Hyuk then gives her a simple command: attack me with everything you've got. She doesn't hesitate for a second. Without a word, she agrees. He calmly draws his own sword, ready to face his determined little student. She gives him one last warning that she's coming for him, full force. And then she charges, dashing straight towards her master, but something feels different. She can feel it in her own speed, but he just deflects the blow, without even trying. All right, let's check in on this intense, one-on-one training session. He tells her not to waste magic on unnecessary footwork. She gets it immediately. And just like that, once again, she readies her beautiful sword, planting her feet firmly to restart her attacks. Total focus. Then she darts straight towards her professor, unleashing a quick, well-planned strike as Kim Joo-hyuk watches. He immediately notes her charge was good, but there's a problem with how she stops. She needs to rotate her body more, Choyeon understands. She takes in every instruction, eager to improve. Kim Joo-hyuk quickly tells her to attack again, without mercy this time. Her reply is instant. Okay, she immediately begins using her new strategies, aiming for Kim Joo-hyuk's chest. Her attacks are so fast the sword now leaves literal trails of light in the air. He has to work to dodge. Every single blow, her blade only managing to strike the ground. For a moment, they just stare each other down. For Choi Erin, this is going exactly as planned as she bravely faces her opponent. Trying to strike without mercy, with zero intent to give up, she's so much stronger now. Kim Joo-hyuk's training is impressive. And he faces her charge with a totally calm and serene look in the middle of battle. The duel gets so intense their swords finally clash, ending this tense but productive chapter. The sun is already setting over the grand school of Valhalla. But back in the training room, Choi Ronan and Kim Joo-hyuk are still going at it. The young girl is clearly exhausted, breathing heavily. Her trainer announces that an hour has passed, deciding to end the session. She agrees instantly. The girl in the pink outfit then sits, breathing hard, completely wiped out from their training battle. She watches her trainer sheath his sword. Thinking his weapon handling is sharper than ever, not even comparable to his skills back at the opening ceremony. But there was still a huge problem. She hadn't even come close to matching Kim Joo-hyuk, even after she asked him to teach her his sword technique. After processing all of this, she calls out to him. Now here's the part that I love. She asks him to duel her again at the next chance. This catches him completely off guard, an unexpected request. He thinks that dueling her is useful. Not to mention it's fun to teach someone so talented and hardworking. He had already sensed her natural skill with the sword back at the entrance ceremony. Even though she was out of breath and he wasn't. In any case, because of her feel for the weapon style, she could help him get his own sense of technique back. He thinks if this were 300 years ago, she would have easily been his disciple. Choi Erin asks him again if they can duel one more time. Kim Joo-hyuk thinks for a moment, then decides to tease her, saying he doesn't want to. Choi Erin simply agrees, which leaves her trainer a bit disappointed she gave up. But check out her response. She explains that he's completely right. She figures if she just follows Kim Joo-hyuk's advice to the letter, then she'll definitely become much stronger. He's slightly let down by her logic. When asked about being right, he just says it's fine and that training is over. Choi Erin tells him she'll see him next time, and he just nods in agreement. And with that, let's jump straight to the Grand Valhalla Stadium. This is actually Yoo Soo-hyun's first time here since the opening ceremony. Oh Se-hyuk looks around, surprised by just how many first-year students showed up. Choi Erin, on the other hand, just quietly observes the entire scene. Not saying a single word. Meanwhile, Kim Joo-hyuk is wondering what's going on. Grace explains that the teacher mentioned this 2 weeks ago. But our main character is totally confused, since that was so long ago. Suddenly, the head instructor calls for everyone's attention. It's time to explain Valhalla's midterm exams. Now, pay close attention here. The first practical test is a full-on dungeon raid. Students have to form groups to enter an artificial dungeon being built right in front of them. As everyone gathers, the senior instructor makes the announcement. They're free to form groups of up to 8 members. Your grade is based entirely on your level of contribution during the raid. And there's a critical elimination rule. If the timer runs out, it's game over, instantly. The senior instructor clarifies the dungeon difficulty is a solid F+. Then he gives the command to begin the exam immediately, and the timer starts. Instantly, chaos erupts as everyone scrambles to form teams. The instructors just watch, knowing exactly how eager these students are. But here's the thing, one student already figured out the catch. Yo Yan decides the dealer on her team isn't good enough and looks for someone else. Even though the kid insists he can handle it just fine. She knows she doesn't need to pick someone better than her. 5 hours is more than enough time for a dungeon this easy. What really matters is contribution, and a smaller team of 6 lets everyone shine. She quickly gives the order for her team to start, ready for the challenge. The senior instructor smirks, seeing that everything is going as planned. A fifth-generation kid understands the exam's true objective. The rest of the students, not so much. They'd usually form a massive team of 20. Or at the very least, a full group of 8 members. And if a team isn't perfectly balanced, conflicts are guaranteed to explode. After thinking it over, the instructor tells the teacher they have 30 minutes. The students are about to enter the dungeon, and they need to be ready. The teacher simply nods. Meanwhile, Kim Joo-hyuk is just standing there. He's watching the other students rush in, wondering what's going on. Honestly, he's a bit lost in the middle of all this chaos. That's when he spots Chia-rin, also alone, quiet and withdrawn. Kim Joo-hyuk realizes she hasn't entered the dungeon yet either. He walks over and asks her what her plan is, since everyone else is already inside. And that's when you and I see this chapter's big moment. She simply says she'll do whatever Kim Ja-hyuk tells her to. He's completely thrown off, wondering what to do with the girl who just put her faith in him. She's been trying to follow his words like gospel since that last training session. Kim Joo-hyuk declares he's going in completely alone. She fires back that she will too. But he barely gives her a second thought. In his mind, this is all just a game. And with that, he's gone, leaving her standing there. She just stays silent. Frozen after he just brushed her off like that, a few other guys notice Cho-ain is all by herself. No group, no allies. One of them decides to shoot his shot and walks right up to her. He lays on the charm, trying to convince her to join their team with a super friendly invite. But she just apologizes and says she's going in solo, turning him down flat. The guy tries to warn her, saying she'll probably get eliminated almost instantly. But Chia-rin says she'll be fine, because Kim Joo-hyuk said it wasn't that hard. This just makes the guy even more worried and frustrated, but it's no use. All that good advice is ignored as she walks into the dungeon alone. And with that, this part of the story closes. Everyone at Valhalla Stadium had already entered. Each student filed into their own dungeon with their respective teams. Meanwhile, they were being watched. Up in the observation room, the professor monitored everyone's progress. He was silent, focused. Suddenly, a monster appears in one of the dungeons. And just like that, Bunyoung Yun snags 2 precious points. Bai Jai scores 1 more. At the same time, Bun Jin Soo only manages to secure a single point for his team. The senior instructor watches it all unfold with a serious, laser-focused expression. The professor thinks to himself that everything is going exactly as planned. The scoring system was designed to be difficult, highlighting the intensity of this training. They were evaluating with speed and precision, and there was no room for error. Back when Lee Sang-chul was active, they called him the Clear Master, a legendary hunter. A contractor with a staggering 99% success rate. The professor knew he understood the core of dungeon raids better than literally anyone. It's what made his evaluations so effective and earned him massive respect. He was watching everything happening on the battlefield, thinking it was a pretty good year. The 5th-generation students were proving to be impressive as a whole. But among them, there was one student who stood out, the absolutely fearless Yun So-yan. Right now, she was barking out orders, positioning her teammates for the perfect attack. They were locked in a frantic battle against the dungeon's monstrous creatures. The beasts were attacking them without a shred of mercy. Yuno Yan is quick to react. She shouts that the front line cannot fall, no matter what happens, and immediately orders every single archer to fire. The monster roars in agony. As the arrows sink in, Yun So Yan attacks it relentlessly herself. A series of precise, powerful strikes is all it takes to finish the job. After the intense battle, the creature vanishes like a hologram in the simulation. Liang Cha is floored. It was just like watching a standard, professional dungeon raid. Yun So Yan had perfectly assigned roles for every member of her team. She was racking up points and even formed an effective midline within the group. If she keeps performing this well in the exams, it's only a matter of time. A matter of time before she takes back her top spot, because if it wasn't for Kim Joo Hyuk, if not for him at the entrance ceremony, her perfect record would still be intact. After thinking all this over, Lee Sang-cha finally decides to check on our protagonist. But when he pulls up his feed, an error message just flashes on the screen. Found, now stick with me, because this senior instructor is about to have his mind blown. The system can easily find any student in the dungeon, but he's gone. Getting tense, he decides to check something else on a hunch. The list of completed dungeons from the bi-monthly exam, and he finds it. Kim Joo Hyuk completed the test in just 23 minutes and 32 seconds, ranking number 1 on the practical test leaderboard. The instructor is stunned. The kid completed the entire thing without a group. Totally on his own, and even more insane was that completion time. Just 23 minutes and 32 seconds. Even so, he's skeptical. He needs to review the footage, doubting a 17-year-old student's power. The recording instantly appears on the control panel. And there's Kim Joo Hyuk just standing there, sword in hand. Now watch this. He looks completely calm and composed despite the challenge ahead. In front of him are countless monstrous beings ready to intimidate and destroy him. But the boy just stretches slowly, calm as can be, and then he starts running, a blur of motion, straight at his ugly opponents. They're watching him with fiery eyes, grunting, trying to scare him off. But Kim Joo Hyuk remains stone-faced, his expression filled with cold anger. He is determined to finish his mission. No fear, no hesitation. He unleashes a flurry of precise and powerful strikes on the monsters. The ones left standing are just filled with pure, unbridled fury. He cuts down the wild goblins with absolute ease. His face is calm, focused. Now he stands before two massive and ferocious enemies. They roar loudly, trying to scare him, but Kim Joo Hyuk just rushes forward to meet them. He prepares a clean strike for both and completely destroys them. So long, orcs, all the missions were completed in record time. The higher-ups watching are impressed, astonished, and totally speechless. But one last target is still standing on the battlefield. He faces the giant monstrous being without saying a single word. Lee Sang-chu, watching this, realizes that enhanced golem was simulated for the midterms to challenge a full group of 8 people. And Kim Joo Hyuk actually looks excited to be facing it right now. He delivers one precise and powerful blow right to the special golem's chest. And it's immediately defeated, disappearing into the simulation's hologram. Seeing all this, Lee Sang-chul is beyond impressed, absolutely floored. He knows exactly who's taking first place in this midterm exam. Without a doubt, it's Kim Joo Hyuk, concluding this part of the story. Elsewhere, a group stumbles out of the dungeon, looking extremely weak and worn out. Another team exits, way more lively, with happy and victorious smiles. Yu Ah wears a sour expression, clearly putting her in a bad mood. That blonde kid also has an angry look, while Choi Ah Ran just observes. Kim Joo Hyuk is also at the scene as the midterm exams finally end. The story then shifts over to the teacher's lounge, far from the stadium. A teacher is staring intently at the student ranking table for the midterm exams. And the look on his face is total shock, Trust me, you're going to want to see why. Tablet, he rushes over to tell Liang Chu the results have been posted. And trust me, the results that just dropped, they're about to shock everyone. Somehow Kim Ju-hyuk landed the #1 spot on the entire ranking. Liang Chu is floored, admitting these results are absolutely insane. He expected the kid to place high, but clearing the dungeon solo. And coming out without a scratch, that's on another level. If he keeps this up, South Korea could reclaim its title as the top country in the world. The instructor realizes this is an honor reserved for the world's strongest pro. Lee Sang-chul is buzzing with excitement, just completely blown away. He says it's been ages since so many geniuses have shown up at once. But get this, he wasn't the only surprise of the exam. The other shocker, a quiet girl named Choi Erin. Kim Ju-hyuk's time was insane, but nobody expected her to outperform the predicted ace, Yoo Hyun. Liang Chu is baffled. Apparently, Choi Erin decided to solo the dungeon too, just like our main character. And she cleared it in record time. She came out injured, but she still finished the whole dungeon successfully. The senior instructor knew she was quiet and diligent. But he never figured she had the guts to pull off a solo run like that on her own. If this was just about teamwork, Yoo Hyun would have aced it, no question. But because of their solo clears, Kim Ju-hyuk and Choi Erin got much higher scores. Still, Liang Chu would never recommend this strategy. Both instructors agree this isn't something a normal trainee could ever do. Still, the teacher can't get Choi Erin off his mind. He remembers meeting her back at his old guild. Back then, her aura was weak. So her deciding to face that dungeon alone, it's a total mystery. He suspects the reason might be Kim Ju-hyuk. I know what you're thinking, and he can't believe it either, so he just focuses on grading for now. The next day, it's official. The students all crowd around a list posted on the school board. It shows the rankings for all the first years. And right at the top, undeniable, is Kim Ju-hyuk. Meanwhile, Rockdell Ventrick and his assistant Julia DePales are watching, absolutely furious. He immediately asks her if Desir is in South Korea. She confirms he is. He snaps, ordering her to call him and get ready to move out. They're leaving immediately. The tension is just ratcheting up. Later that night in the city of Seoul Jamsil, the streets are all lit up. Rockdell Ventrick and Julia DePales arrive calmly at a restaurant. Right away, someone greets him with a rude tone. It's Desira Ventrich. It's been a long time since these two have met face to face. Rockdell immediately sits down. His so-called friend eats like a savage animal. The blonde man in black just watches with pure disgust. Then Desir Ventrick finally starts talking, asking what their target, Kim Ju-hyuk, has been up to. Rockdell says nothing much, just acting like an arrogant fool. He claims the kid caused a huge embarrassment because of his humble background, and now he has to pay. And then Desir asks, "Can I just kill the target in one go?" Rockdell replied that the decision was entirely in his hands. But the big guy then said he needed to prepare the council properly. Leaving the other man totally confused by that statement, he immediately whipped around and pointed his finger at someone. He was pointing right at Julia DePales because thanks to her, there had been a huge conflict with that family. Desira wasn't sure if it was because of the sheer number of people in the group. But he'd already killed some just because the rumors had spread so far. But the people in Valhalla were different. Their own feats weren't affected by causing chaos over there. Rockdell understood everything his friend was saying. He promised to do his best to set up a scenario so he wouldn't have to worry. The deal with Seal and Desir also required a good reward for the mission. And that closes out this part of the story. A week later, Brace is talking to Kim Ju-hyuk and finds out he's filing a request to leave the school again. Brace seemed a little confused. But our main character explained he got permission to leave the school one more time. If he performed well on one of the exams, he would get another chance to head out. According to Brace, Kim Ju-hyuk confirmed it, not wanting to miss the opportunity to check his grades. The man in glasses just asked where our protagonist was going. Ending this scene, the story then shifts over to the province of Suwon. Hyuk was already on his way to his destination. Checking his phone for the location, which seemed to be right around the corner, suddenly an intimidating voice calls out to him. It was Desura Ventric, and trust me, the look in his eyes means trouble. He says it's a pleasure to finally meet him. As this chapter ends, the plot picks up in the marketplace of Area 7. The boss, Black Cat, was watching over his entire enterprise from the top of a building. Completely focused. Wearing that seriously intimidating black mask of his, suddenly he spotted something that put him on high alert. It was the Constellation on the other side, demanding to know when the ring would finally be in their hands. Black Cat replied that it was already on its way and would go through the normal procedures before arriving through the portal. The ruler on the other side shot back that he was absolutely insane. Black Cat had no idea what was going on. At the request of the former black feline, he had been looking into whether this was really an artifact from the era of destruction. But a reaction like that was totally unprecedented. I know what you're thinking, this is bad. Suddenly, a noise right next to him snapped him out of his thoughts. A black box had just arrived through the magic portal. Black Cat celebrated its arrival, thinking this would probably calm down everyone who was worried about its contents. Finally, he started to pry it open with his hands, and inside, the highly magical ring was revealed. He then messaged the Constellation that the accessory had arrived. But there was no response, which left him puzzled. A message soon appeared saying they were present. It began repeating over and over, ending this part of the chapter. In another part of the story, back in Suwon province, Hyuk asked the man who he was. The guy just mocked him, saying he didn't need to know that kind of information. Hyuk guessed the man wanted something from him. And he was dead right, there was no other reason for them to meet on a remote, massive mountain like this. Our protagonist asked if the guy's intention was to eliminate him. And you and I both know the answer was an immediate yes. Stick with me here, because our guy explains it wasn't just good intuition. Anyone could have read the boy's intentions just by looking at him. And when Hyuk says he figured it out days ago, Desura Ventric completely snaps. He yells that for someone ranked number 1 in Valhalla, our protagonist is acting foolish. Then he charges forward, screaming not to be disappointed. He winds up for an absolutely devastating attack, but you're gonna wanna see this. Hyuk dodges the punch like it's nothing, letting his opponent slam into a tree. The arrogant punk actually groans in pain, his hand just literally split the thick tree right in half, making it topple to the ground. Desura mocks him, saying Hyuk was lucky to have dodged that. Otherwise, he would have been a dead man. Just taunts him back. He says the punch was way too slow, that luck had nothing to do with it. But inside, he knows there's a serious problem here. This opponent is strong. As strong as Asuk, maybe even stronger, no question about it. His body is too fragile to block a hit like that head-on. So his strategy to win this fight is gonna be very simple. And I know what you're thinking, is he seriously running away? He takes off, forcing the kid to chase right after him, totally confused. Desura thinks that for someone in Hyuk's spot, running is the smart play. He would have been beaten to a pulp if he just stood there. But this persistent brat is definitely not going to let him get away. Suddenly, Hyuk slams on the brakes and asks if his enemy is even using his brain. Desura is stunned, wondering how he got so close without him noticing. He didn't even see the punch coming until it was right there. And then bam, a direct hit straight to his ugly face. The impact is so massive it sends him flying backwards, crashing to the ground. He's in absolute agony, and when he finally manages to open his eyes, he's met with a terrifying sight. Hyuk's foot is coming down to stomp him. He barely manages to roll out of the way of the crushing blow. If he hadn't, that would have been the end of him, for good. Even the ground itself cracks under the sheer force of that stomp. Kim Joo-hyuk seems impressed, saying the guy was really lucky to dodge that. Hearing this, Dizzer Everich explodes with pure rage, demanding to know what he just did. Kim Joo-hyuk just calmly states his rank in Valhalla, as if that explains everything. This just makes Dizzer even angrier, completely overwhelmed by this insane power. The sheer difference in strength ends the confrontation right there. Now let's see how this monster was made, back at the Aventric family home. In the past, they used the blonde boy's special talent to boost their own status. See, he had an innate gift for elixirs. The kid was drinking one. He could drink any potion without side effects, and his parents made him chug expensive ones. Suddenly, the glass bottle slips right out of his hands. It shatters all over the floor. By 16, the boy was already stronger than an adult. His parents planned to use him to bring fame to the family name. But there was a dark side to all of this. We see Dizzer just staring intensely at his guardians, then his expression changes. Stick with me because this guy just went from furious to full-on psycho. He made it crystal clear he was done living under his family's control. And his father is now lying dead in the mud. For Dizzer Every, this overwhelming power meant he no longer needed to worry about the family's recognition. His sister storms onto the scene, her expression pure fury. This kid was a walking headache for the Ventric family. And he was eventually kicked out by a member posing as the family head. But he couldn't care less. Money solved all his problems, and he had gotten even bolder after cutting ties. So when he got a request from Rockdale Ventric, the money was huge, but his interest in Kim Joo-hyuk was way greater. Kim Joo-hyuk had placed first on the Valhalla entrance exam. And rumor was he's a crazy guy who cursed and kicked every single guild scout away. Messing with someone like that. For Dizzer, that just sounds like prime entertainment, but there's a catch. The question was, who exactly was this guy? Back in the present moment, Kim Joo-hyuk calls out to him. He asks what kind of drug he used to get so strong, since elixirs were way too expensive for an orphan. The question leaves the boy stunned, then he just starts laughing at his opponent's wild guess. It was hilarious. He was basically being accused of juicing up on steroids, a cheat who abused drugs. But Dizzer didn't care about the accusation, asking again how the guy got so strong. Kim Joo-hyuk responds that he has never used drugs. His strength is the result of brutal training and nothing more. He adds that, sure, you could maybe compare Dizzer to Asuk. But it would be a massive insult to compare a naturally built man to a little druggie. After hearing that, Dizzer becomes absolutely enraged with Kim Joo-hyuk. He lacked the power for his trump card, but he decides to draw his magical sword anyway. Kim Joo-hyuk is just confused by the display of magic. Dizzer can feel his own power growing like crazy. He calls the protagonist out for a huge battle, declaring that he won't let him get away so easily, but then bam. A hard, painful punch smashes into his face. After landing the blow, Kim Joo-hyuk mocks him. And I mean, come on, we all know a smart fighter never lets his enemy power up. Dizzer goes flying a long way, screaming in pure pain and agony. Not satisfied, our protagonist charges him again, mercilessly landing another powerful strike right on his opponent's face. The screams of pain just get louder with each brutal blow. Suddenly, Kim Joo-hyuk desperately yells at him to calm down. Dizzer, weakened and dazed, struggles to stay conscious. The protagonist angrily scolds him, saying he couldn't pass out just yet. He adds that he might have forgiven him if this was a petty fight. But that earlier comment completely removed any chance of a quick pardon. Still, Kim Joo-hyuk had one more thing to ask him. Dizzer, with a completely shattered and hopeless expression, listens as Kim Joo-hyuk tells him to clench his teeth tightly, while preparing another painful blow, and that's where we leave this chapter. Let's drop into the grand dorms of the enormous Valhalla Academy, specifically Rockdale Ventric's room, that arrogant little brat. He's assuming that by now Ventric has already dealt with Kim Joo-hyuk and knowing his personality. Might have even killed him. Cleaning up discerner Nen's messes was always annoying. But hey, at least this time it wasn't on school grounds. Perfect. Rockdell lets out a huge sigh of relief. Suddenly he calls for his assistant, Julia DePaul, who immediately answers, "Yes, sir." He orders her to fetch a car right away, and she agrees without a second thought. But then a familiar buzz comes from his phone. It's discer Nen calling at the perfect moment. He asks if the job is done, if Kim Joo-hyuk is finished. But the only answer he gets is a tense, eerie silence on the line. Again, Rockdell calls out his name, only to hear a terrifying groan. The sounds of pure pain, agony, and despair just keep coming through the phone. Now pay attention, because someone new starts to speak. And Rockdell's blood runs cold. It's Kim Joo-hyuk, his voice calm and icy. He starts translating Ventric's agonized groans, saying Desura wanted Rockdell to burn 2 sticks of incense for him when he dies. And then a final message from Kim Joo-hyuk himself, "You just wait." With that, this absolutely brilliant chapter of the story ends. Our protagonist tries to call Rockdell Ventric back, but just hears a click. He gets seriously pissed at the rudeness, hanging up without even a word. He starts to think things through, first on the list. What exactly is he supposed to do with the unconscious Ventric at his feet? Meanwhile, far away, a cup of tea is poured into a beautiful, elegant cup. Julia DePaul informs her annoying boss that his tea is now ready. But he's completely silent, not a single word, just staring. Julia tries to tell him again, but he just cuts her off with his usual arrogance. She delicately says she understands, leaves the tea, and gets out of there fast. I know what you're thinking. Rockdell can't stop replaying that call, thinking about Kim Joo-hyuk. He never imagined that kid could actually defeat Desura, not after the Lyric incident. And now he's left wondering what in the world he's supposed to do. He knows who's behind everything, and it's pretty clear Desura completely failed. It's only a matter of time before news of this mess reaches the family, and everything spirals out of control. Rockdell desperately tries to convince himself that the problem isn't that big. Kim Joo-hyuk is a commoner. He'd never be able to reach them, right? The blonde brat decides to just lay low for a while and keep quiet, hoping this all just blows over. All right, let's get back to our hero Kim Joo-hyuk, making his way through the forest. Brace and the protagonist are talking telepathically about Ventric's dirty tricks. They're planning to expose him in the future, since for now, their hands are tied. The guy with the odd glasses asks a simple question: why didn't Kim Joo-hyuk just kill him? He replies that you can't mix up past issues with the present situation. Fair enough, the point was understood. Besides, Brace had one more question. And this one really grabs his friend's curiosity. The question was about the strange magic Ventric used just a few moments ago. Model. Trust me, you're about to see how our main character deals with his enemies. And Brace confirmed it. He definitely sensed this kind of power somewhere before. Joo-hyuk replies in his mind that around 300 years ago, monsters used dark magic just like this after sacrificing animals. Brace mocks him, saying Joo-hyuk lacks the skill to even tell people apart by their magic, and the jab clearly gets under his skin. He asks if this is related to what Ventric said about the sword's hidden side. Brace can only give a vague maybe, and with that, their mental conversation ends. Back in reality, Joo-hyuk demands to know who sent the kid. But the boy just groans, completely unable to form a single word. Joo-hyuk realizes Ventric's jaw was knocked clean out of place from the earlier beating. He shoves both thumbs right into the kid's mouth. Now watch this. He warns him that this is going to hurt, before yanking his jaw back into place with one brutal motion. With that sorted, he starts again, asking who gave the order. The boy just stays silent, thinking it over. But Kim Joo-hyuk stares him down with a dead serious expression. He pushes for an answer, reminding him he only fixed his jaw so he could talk. and warns him that staying quiet is not a good idea. Dara Ventric finally speaks, asking why he's still holding his fingers. In response, Hyuk makes a sudden, sharp motion. The boy lets out a piercing scream as his fingers are twisted backwards. Hyuk just threatens him again, demanding the information he wants. And there it is, the answer we've been waiting for. Dara admits his own brother sent him. Hyuk isn't surprised. He already figured that was the guy stirring up trouble. He immediately demands to know everything about the brother's affiliations, since he's clearly not from Valhalla. Dara is hesitant, then tries to threaten Hyuk back, saying he'll find out the hard way. Bad move. Hearing that, Hyuk casually breaks 2 more of his fingers. Dara finally cracks, revealing he's from the First Species, a mercenary group that handles all sorts of dirty jobs. Hyuk has heard of them and scoffs, calling him nothing but a paid bully. Dara snaps back that Hyuk just sees everyone as trash. He then reveals the constellation that the First Species worships is the hidden side of the sword, the same power that Hyuk has a contract with. Dara boasts that if he'd had 30 more seconds to charge his magic, the fight would have ended completely differently. Hyuk cuts him off, saying he talks too much. He adds that he would have let him go if he'd just given up the name from the start. Once again, he forces his thumbs into the kid's mouth, telling him he looks much better silent, and dislocates his jaw all over again. And with that, the brutal interrogation comes to a close. Messages start flooding Hyuk's phone. As expected, they all agree the guys are bad news. Still, our protagonist is pissed. He couldn't find the notes, and Ventric is still making him look like the bad guy. He starts plotting how to absolutely ruin that punk's life, knowing he needs a new strategy. Alright, let's watch how our main character wages war with modern methods. First, he's got Dara's entire confession recorded. Now he just needs to find the right place to leak it, so Hyuk makes a call. It's to his teacher, and she's pretty surprised to hear from him. She figured the kid was finally agreeing to be her personal assistant, but that is not the reason. He asks a simple question: does she happen to know any famous and reputable journalists? And with that, this chapter gets intense. News spreads like wildfire about the Ventric family's assassination attempt on a student from Valhalla. Report after report highlights the absolutely shocking and unbelievable case. People online immediately start breaking down and summarizing the chaos that went down. And just like that, Hyuk's name is all over social media, tied directly to the case. And honestly, can you blame him? He's loving this modern war. Race even praises his quick adaptation to the culture, but Hyuk says it's not that simple. It's the result of pure suffering and effort, reading forums, watching the news. Thanks to all that grinding, Hyuk became the man he is today, understanding the game from every single angle. But there was a small catch in his plan. Barty didn't quite get it. Hyuk explains his target was only Ventric, but the scandal ended up blowing back on the entire family. Turns out, the journalists his teacher recommended were the real deal, incredibly famous, causing the story to explode into a media frenzy. By now, a podium is already set up for the Ventric family's official statement. The family's leader prepares to speak, facing a wall of flashing cameras and immense pressure. First, she offers her sincere apologies to the student who was attacked and to Valhalla Academy itself. Then she drops the family's official position on what happened. She claims the attack was carried out by a rogue agent, Dezura, who has since been kicked out of the Ventric family. And remember that recording. She spins it, saying he blamed Rockdale just to save his own skin and escape the consequences of his actions. So in her eyes, the Ventric family had zero involvement in the incident. But since the crime was committed by a former family member, she says the moral duty to make things right falls on them. With that, the family head announces she'll visit the victim to apologize in person. She also adds that Ventric might, in fact, be connected somehow to the guy who did it. As a result, he's being called back home, where the prosecutor's office has already scheduled an investigation to clear everything up. After her speech, another storm of photos erupts. The family head immediately bolts, refusing to answer any questions from the press about her so-called apology visit. Meanwhile, Rockdale is watching the whole thing on his phone, his face a mask of pure anger and frustration at how big this fire has grown, and trust me, it's about to get worse. A call comes through from his father. He picks it up instantly, no hesitation. His father orders Rockdale to return to England for a while, starting right now. This isn't a request, it's an order from the entire family, and he has to obey. After hanging up, he's absolutely furious, just completely unhinged. Cursing everyone and everything, his maid, Julia DePaulys, is left totally terrified. And elsewhere, Darrow is being backed into a corner, feeling the pressure. To reveal the real mastermind, he insisted the Ventric family was innocent. Darrow claimed he alone was responsible, and Kim Ju was actually impressed. The kid was swallowing his pride, even though he despised the Ventric family. The protagonist wondered who would apologize to him, since the whole situation had already turned super uncomfortable, but then, suddenly, he froze. He realized he was already near the faculty office. He figured class must have ended early, but wasn't sure who to ask for a favor. So with that, he heads over to the Valhalla Cafe. The gray-haired teacher was in an exceptionally good mood. But Kim Ju-haek shot her down with another no. He already knew she was going to ask him to be her assistant. It was so obvious. So she asks why he called her, saying she's a very busy, overworked person. She was completely stunned, thinking this might be a romantic meetup, only to get immediately shut down by Kim Ju-hyuk. She mulled over his words, thinking they were pretty disrespectful. He just replied that they'd been talking this way for a while, and honestly, she had to agree. Kim Ju-hyuk then explained the real reason he called. It wasn't out of boredom, but to thank her for the journalist. He offered to share some intel on how to deal with monsters, which made her light up. But it came with one simple request, which she immediately accepted. It was an easy favor, just give him a day off from school. The teacher tried one last time to convince him to become her assistant, but no dice. Now let's jump over to the Northern Pacific, because this is where things get deadly. We're on board the criminal transport ship Al-08. Dara is locked in a cell. He was furious. He never imagined he'd be thrown onto a ship and treated like cargo on his way to the infamous Tower Prison. A prison built right in the middle of the North Pacific Ocean, a towering S-class facility. Some constellation had created this isolated hell to turn all contractors back into normal human beings. But Dezura didn't care about any of that. He was only keeping his mouth shut so Rockdale wouldn't get kicked out of the family and to get his own sentence cut by 5 years. And 5 measly years. That meant absolutely nothing to him. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes nearby. A bright red light flashes past his cell in an instant. Then, someone appears right in front of him. And just like that, the chapter ends. Turns out, the person who showed up was Cook. Without a word, he shoves a dagger straight into Dezura's stomach. He just stands there staring, his right hand gripping the blade tightly. Cook wishes for Dezura's death, saying the first species doesn't need his kind. Dezura groans, the pain in his gut is unbearable. And soon he just collapses face first onto the floor. Cook just watches him fall. No intention of helping. Okay, so Desire is down, but the real storm, it's brewing back home. We're at the grand Ventric family mansion. The leader of the family is radiating pure fury. Her icy glare is fixed on Rockdale Ventric and his father, Eden Ventric. First, she calls out the show-off by his full name. He answers immediately. She asks him flat out, "What are you going to do?" leaving him totally stunned. He stammers out a sincere apology, but she's not having it. Not for a problem this big, she tells him apologies like that won't fix a thing. And you and I both know the leader then ordered Rockdale to face his real punishment. She demands to know in detail why he pulled such a malicious stunt. And he answers her without a single moment of hesitation, ending his part of the talk. After his explanation, she just stares him down. She gets that he wanted to deal with Kim Joo-hyuk, and he wasn't wrong, but she was furious about this. The whole situation was a mess, and his explanation was just shallow and petty. Rockdale claims he acted alone because he thought Kim Joo-hyuk insulted the Ventric family. But the leader sees the truth. It was his own pride on the line, and as a result, he dragged the family's entire reputation through the mud. The matriarch was completely undecided on how she would punish the arrogant kid. And he grew desperate, unsure what to do. He blurts out that he'll do anything at all to restore the Ventric family's fallen honor. But the leader doesn't get what he's saying. At this point, the only real way to restore the Ventric family's honor is by kicking him out. The boy's father immediately objects to this, arguing that a punishment like that is far too severe. So she asks Eden Ventrich if he'd rather be expelled in his son's place. That question leaves him nervous, silent, and with absolutely nothing to say. Meanwhile, you and I can see what the leader is really thinking. She'd rather see the boy gone. But she can't do that right now. It would prove that Rockdale Ventric was guilty of ordering Desura to carry out the assassination attempt, so she finally prepares to address the boy. She calls out his name, and he responds immediately, kneeling right before her. Then she tells him she won't expel him, for now. She orders him to go back to Valhalla quietly. And after his meeting with Kim Joo-hyuk is over, she will reconsider his fate. After hearing her judgment, Rockdale Ventric thanks her with genuine relief. She also orders Eden to keep a tight leash on his mediocre son, warning his own position depends on the boy's behavior. He has no choice but to agree. Then she tells everyone to leave at once. They obey without a word. The two walk away with heavy, angry expressions. Eden then warns his son to stay silent from now on and stop acting so recklessly. But here's the thing, his father completely missed what the family leader really said. The truth is, Rockdale Ventric's expulsion is going to happen sooner or later. With the media watching their every move, no action could be taken right away. But once things die down, she will drop that bomb, leaving everyone stunned. However, something else has to be taken care of before that happens, especially since there is no one left to interfere. And Rockdale Ventric makes it clear that his father needs to help him with his new plan. Eden just tells his son to move carefully, and he agrees, ending these intense scenes. Now, a few days later, we jump over to Valhalla Academy. We're in the interview room, where a quiet conversation is taking place. The teacher explains to Kim Joo-hyuk that the head of the Ventric family will be calling him to apologize for the incident in person. The kid pushes back, stating it had nothing to do with the family. And she even made it a point to say they were not involved. The professor just explains that it was still a good idea to issue an apology, especially since the woman was probably already on her way to Korea. Kim Joo-hyuk starts to realize the truth. The family probably wants to handle Rockdale Ventric's punishment themselves. Look, you and I can tell they're only here because they have no other choice. And honestly, he finds the whole situation incredibly irritating. The professor begins to voice his and instructor Lee Sanctu's concerns. He also brings up how, according to protocol, a Valhalla student was attacked, and get this. The attacker confessed someone had ordered the hit, but there was a catch. He can't believe the family is trying to protect their reputation by just dismissing the evidence, scrambling to cover up the entire truth. To protect the students, either Rockdale or the family's leader has to be expelled. But here's the problem. The professor reveals the family has donated a massive amount of money to the school. He's absolutely disgusted by it. Since Valhalla's funding comes from these donations, the school would probably just turn a blind eye if they were paid enough. Kim Joo-hyuk understands completely. He gets what the professor is saying and agrees to talk with the family head. At that moment, the professor is stunned by something. it was the kid's reaction. Completely composed, Kim Joo-hyuk just replies that he's always been this way. Then a knock, don't blink, this is important. The professor informs him the family head has arrived and he'll let her in. He then leaves, wishing them a good conversation, and quickly opens the door. For the woman, bowing deeply upon seeing her and offering a warm welcome. She returns the gesture with gratitude and steps into the room. Slowly she enters, her eyes meeting Kim Joo-hyuk's. Adelia Ventrich introduces herself. She greets the boy, he greets her back, and that's the end of the chapter. The story picks up with Adelia Ventrich sitting right across from Kim Joo-hyuk. They stare at each other for a tense moment, then she starts talking. She brings up the incident with Dare, offering a deep and sincere apology. Joo-hyuk retorts that since Dare is being expelled, everything's fine by him. But she pushes, saying she's heard rumors about Rodil Ventrich also causing trouble for him. And you know what he says, it was once, it's in the past. She points out that Rodil Ventrich had nothing to do with this incident, so there would be no public statements. But according to her, Adelia insists they need to have a serious conversation with Kim Joo-hyuk about this. She keeps pushing for an official statement, but the media and the public aren't giving the story much attention. Joo-hyuk agrees, thinking to himself, this family is known for lying, that's why nobody believes a word they say. So she proposes creating a chance to resolve this misunderstanding. Then she asks if Kim Joo-hyuk would help them, his answer, a firm no. As expected, she tries to convince him, saying if he helps them just this once, she will personally guarantee her support all the way through his graduation. She even offers to get him into a guild sponsored by her family. So their help would continue even after school, all to make him a successful hunter. Kim Joo-hyuk asks if one statement would really make everything disappear. It's so obvious, this is a massive bribe just to buy his silence. They're desperate. Adelia Ventrich's expression turns deadly serious. Hearing this from him, and what do you and I learn right now, he's angry. He's furious because they're trying to just cover everything up. He wasn't trying to reward her, he just wanted to watch the disgrace that Rodil Ventrich had brought on. Hearing this, the woman flew into a rage. She transformed, furious at being spoken to as if she were a commoner. And let me tell you, Kim Joo-hyuk just eats this up, mocking her right back. He says she's finally showing her true colors now, that she can't pretend anymore. She snaps back that she came to make things easy for him, but in return, all she got was pure arrogance. In that moment, she wanted him dead. She had tried to be generous, but this kid was just throwing it back in her face. So Kim Joo-hyuk provokes her, telling her to try and attack him, which only makes her more enraged. He calls out her public statement, the one where she claimed the family had nothing to do with the incident, trying to buy their way out of a lie while wanting to kill him. And right here, watch how he pushes every single one of her buttons. He flat out says she can't kill him anyway, just pouring fuel on the fire and pushing her rage to its limit. Adelia Ventrich forces herself back to normal and immediately invites our main character for a talk, promising to make him regret every single word he just said. Joo-hyuk just thinks she can't do anything in the end and is just talking trash. Barch then steps in, saying Joo-hyuk doesn't need to go that far, and the two start a quick mental conversation. Joo-hyuk tells Barch he hates these arrogant fools more than anything, and that he knows exactly what Adelia Ventrich is planning, cursing her out in his head. He also says he hates Barch too, who doesn't seem to care. But Kim Joo-hyuk eventually cools down, thinking about how he has no more classes for the day and can head to the training center early. The scene shifts, and now we're in front of the Valhalla Stadium. Kim Joo-hyuk is walking along, scrolling through his phone when he suddenly bumps into someone, looking pretty surprised. It's the cute girl Choi Aron, and okay, I know what you're thinking, but this isn't a romance scene. Standing over her is the eldest son of the Choi family, Choi Jin-min. He's telling her she's not good enough to beat him, and training at Valhalla is a total waste of time. He adds that if she really wants to stay in the family's good graces, she should skip the selection test that weekend, because he doesn't want to see her get humiliated. But she immediately shuts him down with a firm no. This leaves him completely stunned by her reaction. From his point of view, he was giving her a golden opportunity, and she just refused it, acting clueless. Choi Aaron tries to respond, but someone suddenly cuts in, calling him an idiot and saying he's the one who's completely misunderstanding the situation. This makes him furious. Kim Joo-hyuk had called him out because he was trying to discourage someone who was putting in so much effort. The guy is confused, wondering who this protagonist even is, since they don't know each other well enough to be trading insults. But Kim Joo-hyuk responds to the arrogant fool who's bragging about his authority, saying he doesn't care one bit about his rank. He then orders him to stop harassing students on school property and tells him to get lost. Our protagonist then asks Choi Aaron if she agrees. She immediately says yes. This leaves Choi Jin-min absolutely seething. He says goodbye to the girl, sneering that they'll meet at the test, and storms off. Choi Aaron thanks Kim Joo-hyuk profusely, but trust me, you'll want to see what happens next, model ordering her to get to training. But as she reveals when she agreed to his plan, well, she was actually picturing a totally different scenario in her head. This, of course, gets our main character's curiosity buzzing. She explains that instead of just telling the guy to scram, she would have insulted him. Kim Joo-hyuk immediately scolds her, thinking she's nuts, and they start planning. As they head for the training center, the scene shifts. A few days later, in the city of Shahung, near a mountain, we find Kim Joo-hyuk deep inside a dense forest. He's glued to his phone, trying to pinpoint the exact location. Brace chimes in, asking if he's hunting for those notes again, and gets a yes. Still, Brace has questions. He's already found several powerful relics. But Kim Joo-hyuk explains he needs to know how many of the written notes are still out there just waiting to be found. He's driven by the incredible power they might contain, leaving Brace totally baffled. Kim Joo-hyuk says finding them is the key to overcoming the hell he endured back when he was Kim Hun-ho. He even admits if he'd met Brace 300 years earlier, he might not have killed him, which leaves Brace completely flustered. Now pay attention, because we're jumping to the grand estate of the Cho Jin family. The place is swarming with reporters, paparazzi, and onlookers. Everyone is buzzing about the candidates for the group selection test. Suddenly, a major figure from the family makes his grand entrance. It's the leader of the Cho Jin group, Cho Jon Saduk, announcing the test is about to start. He repeats what he said before, making it crystal clear. The winner will be named the successor. The loser, they're immediately exiled. Cho Jon-suk then asks if the two candidates are ready to begin. They both respond with absolute certainty, yes. He takes a deep breath, the tension building in the air. Then he reveals the task: find the double blade hidden somewhere in these enormous mountains. Whoever finds it and brings it back will be the undisputed winner. How they get it doesn't matter one bit. With that, he gives the order. The battle has begun. Choi Iron's opponent celebrates, jogging ahead like it's no big deal. Yeah, his plan is to let her find the blade and then just steal it from her. The guy's whole strategy is to snatch the prize right from under her nose. And with that scummy plan in motion, we flash back to the past, with Cho Jin-gun saying goodbye. He's walking away after Kim Joo basically told him to get lost. Then suddenly his phone starts blaring in his pocket. He answers fast. He quickly picks up, identifying himself on the spot. A man on the other end gets straight to the point. What happened to the double blade? Cho Jin-yun explains he has to go through the selection test, which complicates everything. The man on the phone is clearly getting annoyed with the kid. This is the second time he's heard about this test, and his patience is wearing thin. Cho Jin-gun knows he's on thin ice and immediately apologizes. He asks if he manages to get his hands on the double blade, will the man keep his promise? He gets a firm yes. The agreement was made in front of a constellation. And you and I both know a promise like that is absolutely destined to be fulfilled. He told the boy to focus only on the target, and he got his answer. Back in the present, Choi Jingun knew this prize was his. He just had to find it, one way or another. But then Choi Erin suddenly stopped cold and released her mana, and this is where we see her real skills shine. She could sense the magic from the double blade. It had to be close. She figured it would probably take about 15 short minutes more. Suddenly, she locked on. She found the exact direction of the weapon, but out of nowhere. Her enemy Cho Jin Yun appeared in the exact same spot. He asked if she was tracking the blade with its magical trail and demanded to know who taught her such a technique. The girl shot back that Kim Joo-hyuk had trained her, which throws us back into her memories. She was asking him about magic control, and he had confirmed he could help her since she already had the basics down. Kim Joo-hyuk told her that she'd already mastered turning magic into thunder. But he pointed out that was just the beginning, and she nodded, ready to learn. He told her to practice small, controlled magic, not just the big flashy attacks. She immediately asked him what method she should use for that, but Kim Joo-hyuk looked confused, assuming her family would have already taught her something so fundamental. Seeing her sad, downcast expression, the protagonist just brushed it off, asking if she only knew how to borrow power from the constellation and gather energy, and she quietly agreed. He admitted with a smile that he wasn't that great at it either. Then he told her to stop talking, relax her entire body, and use just the tips of her toes and fingers to extend her magic just a little bit. She had to slowly spread it out, as if she were guiding mana to every single strand of her hair. In that state, Choi Erin had to try and sense the magic floating in the air. According to Kim Joo-hyuk, she focused instantly, no hesitation at all. Suddenly, her entire world changed completely, revealing 1,000 things she'd never seen. She immediately widened her eyes in pure shock. Choi Erin gasped as Kim Joo asked if she could feel it now. The young girl nodded, explaining that she could see the shape of the magic surrounding him. He replied that this is what magic feels like, even when it's faint and contained within the body. It can all be controlled with precise mana use. Kim Joo-hyuk advised her to use more of her power, which would make it easier to sense magical traces in the air and ground. She took his advice to heart. He explained that if magic looked like his, Choi Erin would be able to identify the unique magical trace of any object. And if she kept training, she could see its entire silhouette clearly. But he admitted he couldn't teach her any more than that. The rest was up to her. After hearing everything her master said, the girl agreed without a moment's hesitation. Now we snap back to the present, where she's still hunting for that double-edged weapon. Cho Jingun asked her who Kim Joo-hyuk was, but the name quickly clicked. He called him shameless and stupid, yet was amazed by her talent. Hearing that, Choi Erin gritted her teeth, her eyes burning with pure rage. She snapped that Kim Joo was stronger than this brat would ever be, demanding to know what he was doing here. Cho Jingun just mocked her after hearing her little outburst. And you and I both know what happens next. He was here to fight, a full-on sword battle against Choi Erin herself. It's Erin, and suddenly he felt something was very, very wrong. This girl. She seemed so frail, but was pushing him back like it was nothing. He quickly pulls his sword back, taking a deep breath, totally stunned. He's wondering, when did this little girl get so unbelievably strong? Now let's jump over to Kim Joo-hyuk's search. You and I know he's using all his magic trying to find that lost artifact, but comes up completely empty. He's frustrated he'd hidden so many, but only one is in Valhalla. Then suddenly, an intense beam of light shoots up from the ground. Kim Joo-hyuk is ecstatic. Another one of the notes is right there. He focuses his power, and it's close. But out of nowhere, a massive explosion rips through the area, leaving him completely confused about what the hell is going on. Meanwhile, back to the fight. The battle between Choi Erin and Cho Jin-hyun is raging. It's a relentless clash. Both of them fighting all out, blades flashing, Erin quickly gets ready to unleash a massive blow against her opponent, no hesitation. She slams her sword into Cho Jin-yeon with everything she's got. He goes flying. He lands hard, breathing heavy, clearly shaken, but then he starts taunting her. He sneers that she must have taken lessons from Valhalla's wild boars. Saying she's just a brute, Aaron tells him to give up the twin blade. He just scoffs, asking if she's lost her mind. He claims an illegitimate daughter like her doesn't deserve the blade. Aaron just focuses. Watching as the boy charges straight for her, she grips her sword tight. With all her strength, he closes the distance, face twisted in pure rage, ready to end this.